to. And Nick, I have not gotten the Bota card up. Is it important for this evening or not?
Extremely, yeah.
Okay. I will build that. And so if you would go around the room. Now what's going on here? Again, I'm getting the feedback. Just a minute.
Yeah, do you have the Rider-Waite that you can just put up while we just go around and say some stuff about that one?
Yes, I will pull up the Rider-Waite card, and if you would lead the parade going around the room about what it basically means to people, then I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll be back. I'll get the.
Thank you. I wouldn't be so emphatic about it if I didn't write every single thing that I have to say about that card and not the other one. And it's a significant departure from the symbolism, so it's. I think.
Okay. Well, the funny thing is, I was going to pull up Jordan's card, but I'm not going to do it this time, or not right now, anyway. But let me see. Where is it? It doesn't, because of the Roman alphabet or the Roman numerals, it doesn't go in order for some reason. But anyway, here it is. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you go ahead, and I'm going to work on pulling up the Bota card.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just bring up the rear. You guys can go ahead and start. Jordan, you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Surely. One thing is interesting about this particular card, and you could probably speak to this. I've always wondered if that orange or Tuscan red draping is a Hebrew character, if it's kind of glyphish in that S kind of on fire. That's kind of a question maybe for later. I see it's the flag, obviously. What I find most interesting here is the sun and the sunflowers are behind the wall behind them. And so this child, which is what I find beautiful, is it's androgynous, it's male or female. And the sun in ancient cultures was typically associated with a feminine divine force because the sun could bring life. And the moon doesn't have its own light and it's reflected light. So I find here the sun face actually looks pretty feminine. The eyes feel to be that of a woman. And so I appreciate that nod to ancient culture if that's correct. And then also the bars between the rays that hold it in the sky. And I'll stop there.
All right, Tammy, would you like to say something?
No.
Fair enough. Right. Colleen?
Well, yes, my card has the twins.
Right, yeah.
And I have 14-year-old grandchildren, twins, and they are exactly like this, Colleen and Johnny. I mean, in character.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm a real newcomer at this, so carry on.
Great, thank you. And yeah, that's the Bota card. So as the viewers and everybody else can see, you know, it's quite different from this card.
Yes.
As a child and a son, but other than that, they're not really the same at all.
I don't see the this grand S that you're referring to at all in this card.
Yeah, the flag isn't there, and the horse is completely gone. There are just a few elements that overlap through each one.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. Samantha?
All right, so here's what I got. Excuse me. So I wrote down keywords.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I wrote inner child. First of all,
Samantha, can you enhance your sound a little bit?
Oh.
You're hard to hear.
can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Is that better? Yeah, okay. I think it's just the distance between the mic and me, so I'll stay close. So I'll start head and then get heart. So my associations are with masculine, external, extending, like the rays of the sun extend. And then getting more heart-centered. For me, it's about inner child. There's something about the child that, one second, guys, because there's something about the position of the child that is fantastical. That's not really realistic. And I wonder if that's intended, meaning the child's not holding on to anything. So I think it represents sort of in the way of the fool, but not in a foolish way, since it's the sun, it's higher up, it's evolved, it's not foolish, but it's free. So there's not a sense that the child needs to hold on for safety. It can have its arms spread out and hold a flag without falling down. That seems significant.
That's actually a very important observation, because
Yeah.
with the sun being about self and identity, you don't need to hold on to yourself. And so that you're really picking up on that playful or blithe. I mean, a horse charges. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's really strong.
Thank you. So when I look at that, just wrapping it up, when I look at that, I mean, for me, what it has, of course, I'm projecting my own experience, but for me, my individuated ideal self is to find this child. I was thinking about that, the child that is me before the world got its hands on me, or the lowercase d trauma of just having a family at all, with varying levels of dysfunction, and who I was taught I was by society and my family, and then taking that child, but having the wisdom of an adult. So I'm an adult now, but my spirit is still the child. So to me, individuation is about integrating that. And I'll just end with, one second. Thanks for y'all's patience. Get a little nervous. Yeah, I'm not sure what the flag means yet. I'm curious as to what people have to say about that. I noticed that there's sunflowers, so that's obviously significant. Flowers turned toward the sun. And then, but another thing about the child is it has a feather in her cap, is what I would say. So that's also similar to the fool, but it's also a reference, I think, for me, it's part of that mumble tarot, like free associated in my own mind, in a Jungian way, maybe, about what words does that remind me of. Feather in a cap is sort of like I don't know how to explain it, sort of like there's a carefree quality to it, and just something to do with that, kind of a silly, playful, like you can take something and have it be a feather in your cap. It's a boon somehow to you. Getting more intellectual, again, the number 6 is probably significant because there's 6 things in the hair. So, but I think the more heart-centered thing is just about, for me, the inner child, and like it's like hope that you can integrate that it is possible. This child appears, but it's later in the arcana. It's not at the beginning. So I think something significant is about that, like what Nick said last week. He said it more than once, that the wise person is the person who reclaimed what they lost from childhood. I'm paraphrasing what Nick paraphrased, but that really resonates for me when looking at this. So thank you.
Yeah, well said. And I think, now that you have a diagram to base this on, if you look at your tree of life, 6 and the sun are synonymous. This is the kind of sun center of everything. And that's why the number 6 is important as well.
Thank you.
All right, Raquel.
For me, the Sun card is always about clarity and vision. I think I'm gonna be the most different from everything that you guys said, because although there is a child, I've usually in my readings for myself and in divination, I've always looked at this card as maybe like everything coming towards the light, you know, everything becoming very clear and very obvious. I think it's a very expected card in the tarot, in the major arcana, because people long for this vision, for this possibility of understanding everything. And the experience of the Sun card may not be as great as we imagined, because kind of like knowing everything may not be the smoothest journey, you know? So it's kind of like, and the child about the Sun, I always like picture something like the chances of life and the chances that you get of life, they're always innocent. I mean, in the sense of like, there is something pure about the things that are happening to you, you know, not in the sense of like the embodiment of a kid itself, you know, but life has that innocence of a child that you are about to see through this card. So that's it for now.
Okay, great.
May I add something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also the play on words. We were talking about Christian before class for the YouTube audience. We were talking about someone Skip showed a deck that has references to Christianity, and so I was thinking about that idea of the sun, right? You know, and in Christian theology, the, you know, Jesus the Son is also God, and so I was and people say that came from earlier mythology before Christianity, or even before monotheism, from what I understand. So the sun god would have been, help me out, folks. There's more than one, I think. Horus, Osiris, I don't know. Ra. Yeah, so the idea of the sun being God, and also I just question what that means in my word association, that we have the sun and then a child, which could be a son.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Patricia, if you would like to say anything, feel free to chime in, but no pressure if you don't. So I don't know that I can really add anything to what's already been said. I can just kind of build on points that have been made already.
Yeah, could I mention just one other thing I hadn't noticed until just now?
Sure.
In both Colleen's card and in both cards, the sunflowers are all turned to the light of the child or the children rather than towards the sun.
Well, that's actually, in the case of the Bota deck, that's not true. And it would be easier to see if it was a colored card, but that's one of the talking points that I hope to go over, is that, in fact, the main difference is that one of the sunflowers is turned toward the sun in the Bota deck.
This one here.
Right,
Yeah.
over on the right.
Right. And what is the significance of that, Nick?
Well, it's a pretty significant thing to unpack, so I don't know that I want to touch on it right away, but I definitely plan to do
Talk
my
about
best
it
to
later.
unpack it.
Okay, I'm sorry I was unable to find a colored Bota card that I could show you quickly, because the one that I found was secured, but I found the basic card.
Okay,
And
yeah, we can.
the unique thing about the Bota deck is it comes uncolored, and you're to color it yourself, and in that way you learn the meaning of the card. And,
What I'm doing, yeah.
Wants to see the colors. There you
Right.
go.
And so did you want to talk anything more about this comparison at the moment?
Well, let me look through the chat here. Patricia commented and said that she wrote a few things down that she would like to be included. So let me just thumb back through this. She said, just seeing it, one feels happy. It's a nice card, and sunflowers have to do with prosperity. I think that is it. So yes, I concur. Okay, so.
Okay, there's an interesting comment here from Curtis on the YouTube channel. He says, 7 faces facing the one viewing the card, symbolic of the 7 planets. A tamed horse, to me, looks as though the emotional nature has been brought under control by the reason of the will, the sun. And Mistel says, I've wondered if there is a reason that both the child and death ride a white horse, as well as the horse seems to have aged in the process.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I can't say anything. I can't really add any supplementary information, but I feel it to be a true connection. And there's also a connection between this card and the Fool card. And Samantha and several other people kind of touched on it, but you know, the Fool has a feather in his cap, and several people mentioned the difference between kind of a puerile naivete versus the childlike innocence of the sun. And it's a much more exalted expression in this card, whereas in the case of the Fool, it's just naive.
Yeah, I just want to go back to Curtis's comment a bit. Because you're focusing on the horse being tamed, Curtis, you know, I think that we've overdone that in the West. And one of the things that we were talking about before we came on to YouTube tonight was the fact that that the tarot is about nature, basically, about how things happen naturally. And these are archetypal things. And so when you're talking about emotional nature as being brought under control, yes, to a point, because we need that to have civilization. But the problem that we have is that we get, let me stop the share here for a moment. We get to the point where we've overdone it. And so it's the reason why neither communism nor fascism work, okay? Because, Winston Churchill was asked several times during the war why he kept funding the British Museum during the war, and he was funding it for tens of millions of dollars. And the answer he gave was, well, if we don't fund that, what are we fighting for? You know, if you just want the trains to run on time, then we might as well have the Germans do that, right? Because that's what they're good at, right? But the point is that fascism was all about the logos, and it was very rigid and strict, of course. And it's a system that we rejected at the end of World War II, or throughout that whole period. And on the other end, of course, is communism. And the problem with communism is that it gave this vision of this natural world that would be oh so nice, where everybody would be equal and everybody would be hunky-dory happy and things would be fine. The problem is that the leaders actually became fascists. And so there's a terrific book called The Red Czar, which is about Stalin and about Stalin's emergence. And so, you know, the USSR didn't have communism. They didn't have socialism. They just had another monarchy, basically. in the form of Stalin running the country with an iron fist. And so that's what will tend to happen regardless of which side you go to. And so the problem that we have is that we can't give up our natural selves. And I think that we've overdone that, but I'll welcome other comments here in the group.
I'd like to appreciate his 7.
That is completely right. A tamed horse, to me, looks as though the emotional nature has been brought under control by reason of the will, the sun. This is also the reason why he holds a flag that's red. Red always has to do with desire, but that's the thing that absolutely sets a child apart from any human person, is that they're free of desires, that by domination or just abstaining from worldly desires, that they've achieved this childlike innocence again, and they hold it as a symbol of dominion.
I would love to. Do you feel complete on that, Nick?
I guess. I mean, I kind of would like to talk about those 2 cards, but yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's all right. I mean, I can hold it. That's why I asked.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I don't know if I can. It just came up in my mind when Skip was talking about. I remembered this deity, this African deity here in Brazil that we tend to culture very much. It's called Exu. I don't know if you guys know.
But I've heard of it. I'm not familiar.
Exu, in a sense, is the Lord of the Crossroads, and every time that we see like the image of a horse in any type of deck, tarot, gypsy cards, whatever, whenever we see a horse, someone riding a horse, we tend to interpret that card as Exu. And as the Lord of the Crossroads, he's the Lord of the 7 crossroads. As the Lord of that, he's like the horse archetype. I think it's connected to the way. I mean, it's connected to the path. It's connected to, and it's not actually about as. I know that the sun and rationality gives that idea, to conquer something, and actually use the rationality to actually be some kind of master of your own life, but it's about the road still. It's about walking, and it's about changing, because Exu is never right about anything. It's about the path itself. And I think that the horse, even though you can dominate it, it's also like calling you to an animal instinct that you can never master, and he will guide you in another direction. If you let the horse guide you, you go through a very different path. And I think that crossed my mind when Skip was talking.
Thank you, Raquel. What I would like to speak to is about 2 things, about desire and also what it means to tame a horse. So in regard to desire, and of course I would be projecting my own experiences as well as fantasy or whatever, my self-conception onto the card. So I just want to acknowledge that. That I think, so in psychological development, my understanding is that we go through a stage that could be called narcissistic. I'm putting it in quotation marks, YouTube audience, don't freak out yet. Just in terms of your desires are very basic. They're of the body. You have the, and I'm less familiar with Jung, but I know Jung talks about the needs of the body, right? Like you have to poop, you have to eat. There's some type of sexual instinct, even as a child, for, sensation feels good to certain parts of your body. You need food. So to me, it has to do with those desires that are healthy and good for personhood. And it's only when, and sensuality, but the sensuality of a child isn't about, what it can become later when it comes to once you become a sexual being, or, you know, you can use those forces to try to dominate other people or to use other people as objects, or, you know, the instinct toward violence can come in if you're taught that later, right? But the instinct to survive and experience pleasure, that's wholesome and good. So for me, it's about the integration of having your desires in a way that is still innocent or morally upright, if you will. And that also has to do with the horse for me, because we could use the word, you know, dominate or tame or whatever, but in order to work with a horse, and anyone who's ridden a horse would know this, you have to meet the horse where the horse is, right? So you're not actually domesticating. I mean, this is just a matter of semantics, but just follow me. You're not taking away the wild nature of the horse, you're working with it. To work with the horse, you also have to change. So you have to go from your cerebral self to kind of an intuitive self of the motions of, do you want the horse to go left or right? And to what degree do you pull on the reins? Are you going to be hard? Are you going to be soft? How are you going to speak to the horse? So I just wanted to say that you're working in concert with the horse. In conclusion,
No, the horse might have other ideas too.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but what I'm saying is, I think sometimes when it comes to animals or technology, we think, oh, mankind, we're dominating these forces. But actually, to make use of them, we need to work with them. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
So,
and that's the nature we're talking about. Go ahead, Colleen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering that the vocabulary is so different when, you know, I'm looking at these twins.
Right.
And there's not horses here, but I do know from observing our twins that the negotiation started in the womb. You know, who's going to be born first, and how is that going to happen? Yes, and our twins are in love with each other. They just really adore each other. And I think Johnny, at about the age of 9, somebody said, "What are you going to do? You know, you love Colleen so much." She happens to be my namesake. And he said, "Oh, I know Colleen's going to get married someday. I'm just going to have to deal with it." And there's this kind of, you know, acceptance
innocence
of life, and their ability to work things out is really a marvel. It was a real gift for our family to have them come into our family. So there's something about what you're describing, Samantha, that they meet each other. They're very good at meeting each other where they are and working it out from there.
Yeah,
Colleen, that's a great
I have a
point.
boy-girl set of grandchildren like that too, but they're only 3 years old so far. So,
well, Colleen, that's a great point with the sacred masculine, sacred feminine, and even with the numbers. I've just noticed the trinity of sunflowers on the left, the pair of the soul's twins with the one yod or yod in between them, and then the one flower unity on the right, then with the one flower raying back to the sun, the one that's
Right.
so there's the trinity, the two twins become one, goes to sun. And I wanted to speak too to Curtis's comment, and also then Raquel followed it up with Eshu. You had mentioned, I think it was in Israel Regardie's book, by the 7 rooms of consciousness protected by 2 guardians, and then the 7 Lord of the 7 Crossroads with Eshu. It's making me think the number 7. I need to look back in the temple work with Karnak to see how many temple centers there are. The 7 seems to be pretty important there in regards to rooms of consciousness, and then also crossroads that are all required to integrate.
Right. Let me read a little bit from the YouTube channel here. Curtis says, "I certainly don't mean diving into pure logos, more like dot, knowledge coming from wisdom and understanding." And another gentleman, Justin, I'm just trying to find his comment. Sorry, lost track of it here. Okay, yeah, don't let me interfere. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and just jump in with what I have to say here because it's on these two cards, and then
yeah, go ahead.
Flip on that or move on or whatever. Okay, so as we've all mentioned, there's several differences. I think the most key difference is the fact that there are 4 sunflowers in the card on the left, the Rider-Waite deck, and in the Bota deck there are 5. 4 that turn towards the humans and 1 that turns back to the sun. And in the previous card, the moon card, I spent a great deal of time talking about how the different elements of the card from the foreground to the middle of the card start at the mineral realm with the stones, the plant realm with the plants and the grass, the animal realm with the dog and the wolf, and then the path symbolizing the human realm that we, several people have gone on before, but it's also our place to now step into that. And there's also an oscillation between the human and the animal realm, in which, if we are kind of a slave to our desires, we don't necessarily go above the animal realm. If we're only doing the things that are necessary for survival, we're essentially kind of living a more animal life than a human life. And then now moving to this card, those 4 kingdoms, the mineral, plant, animal, and human kingdom, are symbolized by these 4 sunflowers that turn towards the earthly world, the world of human affairs. And then this new 5th kingdom that turns back to its source is the kingdom of spirit. So I said that we oscillate between the human realm down into the animal realm, but we can also oscillate up into the spiritual realm. And this realm is kind of a world that connects both the earthly world and also the spiritual worlds. So that's why it turns back to its source rather than turning back to the humans. It kind of serves as a pontifex or a bridge. Okay.
I want to comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Nicholas. That what this reminded me of while Nicholas was talking is because at first, so I'm convinced now that the facing of the sunflowers does mean something. Because at first, when people were mentioning it, I was like, oh, couldn't it just be like the artist was, working in 2 dimensions and they just want us to see the sunflowers? However, once Nick, once Nick pointed out the difference that there are in the Bota, which is on the right, that sunflower that is facing the sun is also, in my projection, younger. It's a newer sunflower. So I think I think this card is about seeing ourselves in nature, because who else is facing the sun is us.
Yeah.
So it's
it's definitely a newly developed thing. I mean, the idea is that it's just this freshly developed 5th kingdom.
And just in case makes the comment here on YouTube. We had a lengthy talk on Peanut Butter Tarot channel about the numerical meaning of the sunflowers. There are 10 in the Rider-Waite, not 4 or whatever you said.
6 on the crown.
And 6 of them are in the hair of the child. Okay, so.
But what I wanted to say, if I'm not cutting you off, Skip.
No, go ahead.
Okay, is that I agree with you, Nick, about the mineral kingdom, or I'm opening up my mind to what you're saying, because that's not like, I'm not coming from that point of view. I'm coming from like my own psychological development. So it's like really gratifying to hear this other point of view that starts like with the sciences, and then we meet halfway and then learning occurs. But is that we mirror the animal kingdom, right? And you were talking about in the same way that on the Bota deck, the sunflower turns toward the sun and it's new. And we, by looking at the card, are facing the sun. So it just as, to me, the meaning of that is just as sunflowers, it's within their nature to turn toward the sun in order to survive and to grow and blossom. We turn toward, to say Christian mythology, we turn toward the Son of God, or whatever in your culture is the sacred in order to survive. And this also follows, I'll try to make this the last comment, but this also follows what you were saying last week about the moon, and that how the element that's missing in the moon card is us, that we're supposed to walk the path. So to me, that has something to do with this card. Like there's a child in it, but we are the child. That's what I project.
We're the divine child.
Yeah, I have several other points that I want to make here, and I really just kind of want to get this out because it's all a piece of what you're saying now, and I want to just kind of unload so we can begin to talk about it. So just to follow up that thought that I had just attempted to unpack, I said it bridges the gap. It serves as a linkage to the higher spiritual world, though it is recognized or remembered or recollected in kind of an anamnesis form on earth, even though it is not of the earth. This is the kingdom of heaven on earth. Okay, so the next thing that I think is important as a distinction between this card, the Rider-Waite card, and also in contrast with the Lover's card, is that they both this card and the Lover's card relate to the story of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. So in that story, they eat from the tree. You know, they then at that point realize that they are naked, and then they are cast from the walled garden that is Eden. And you know, at that point they become aware of their nakedness, and they're ashamed of it. And now, so that's just kind of laying the foundation for what I want to say here. Adam and Eve are cast from the garden after they eat the forbidden fruit and have shame for their nakedness. Now the children have returned back to the walled garden of Eden, returned to their childlike state, and they are not ashamed of their naked bodies. Consequently, making the path of return, they are able to look upon the countenance of God. And the Hebrew letter resh that's associated with this means face, or more specifically, countenance. So that's why you see the face in the sun. And it has to do with this idea of, you know, Adam and Eve being cast from the garden where they were in contact with God, where they could look upon the face of God, to be being cast down into the physical world, but then actually being redeemed back to that state where they could again look on the face of God and have no shame over their nakedness. Okay. And I also have written down here, like all bodies in the physical and external world orbit the sun, so too do all internal bodies and stars orbit our internal sun. Also, could you pull the two cards back up, please?
Yeah, I will do momentarily. I'm in the middle of something, but I will.
Good shit, Nick. Good stuff. We're on this channel. I don't know, but yeah, that's.
Okay, well, I guess while I'm waiting on this, so the 8, I'll just pull up my card here.
Oh, here we go. Here it is.
Okay, so if you look around the star, there are 8 principal rays and 8 secondary rays, and each ray is divided into 2, so that totals 32, just like there are 32 mysterious paths on the tree of life. Okay, so also there are the 12 yods, and 1 is right in between the 2 children here. And in the previous card, that was the card of Pisces. Like I said, it rules the feet because that's the last sign of the zodiac. And now that cycle is completed. So there are 12 yods, and you know, each of those relate to the celestial archetypes of the zodiac. And now that they've made that entire cycle, they've kind of perfected all of those archetypal expressions. And it's also interesting to note that, you know, each of those, just like these rays, have a dual nature, or, you know, are expressed in what some people call syzygies. And they also relate to the 24 elders that are talked about throughout the book of Revelation and different points in the Bible, because that's 12 dual nature archetypes. So I guess that's pretty much all that I have to say. And I'm really, it for me has to do with this turning back to the source of life and the external world, but also that being an analogy for the source of life in our internal world. And also Adam and Eve, you know, that whole story takes place within a walled garden that's also in Christian Orthodox iconography symbolized as being on top of a mountain. So that mountain that you see off in the distance in the moon card could very well be this walled garden.
What, excuse me, what is the meaning of the circles that they're standing in?
I think it's just the symbol of the sun. If you look at like the astrological glyph of the sun, it's just a circle with a dot inside of it. And I think it's just that.
It might be a mandala too.
I was going to say the mandala of self, and they have a foot on both sides, one in the nucleus and one in the outer ring. And my question is that a double circle of grass, or are those tiny letters? I mean, are there inscriptions in there?
It's grass.
Okay.
And it's also noteworthy to notice that in the lover's card, the two characters are switched. The woman is on the left and the man is on the right, and they're separated, right? They've been cleaved apart by the sword that is the Hebrew letter Zayn. But here, they're joined. Their places are switched. And in that other card, the man looks to the woman and the woman looks up to the angel that's above them. But now they hold hands, they're unified, and they look to one another. So to just wrap up everything that I've said, I have 3 passages that I want to read to you guys. 2 are from the Gospel of Thomas, and 1 is from the book of Matthew. So I'll start with the 2 from the Gospel of Thomas. This is Logion 37. His disciples said, "When will you appear to us, and when will we see you?" Jesus said, "When you undress without being ashamed, and take your clothes and put them under your feet like little children, and trample on them, then you will see the Son of the Living One and not be afraid." Okay. Another one, Logion 22. "When you make the 2 into 1, when you make the inner as the outer, the upper as the lower, and when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male shall not be male, and the female shall not be female, then you will enter the kingdom." And like I said, in that earlier card, you know, the male and the female are separate. And here they're joined, they hold hands, they look upon each other rather than looking to one or the other to look up into heaven. And then the final quote, Matthew 18, verses 2 and 3. "And Jesus called the child unto him and set him in the midst of them. Truly, I tell you, he said, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter into the kingdom of heaven."
Wow.
I appreciate that most too, because there's that separate but distinct and a dignity of difference. They're not mud. They haven't blended, but they are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Also
that's it for me. I appreciate you guys letting me go on my spiel. I was kind of busting at the seams, but
that's a good spiel.
Oh, wonderful.
Encore.
Wonderful, Nick. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the circle's on the ground. The symbol of the circle with the dot in the middle also symbolizes origin. It means literally origin, the beginning. So they've each got a foot in it.
Yeah.
They're holding hands. They've back the way it started, one being.
You know, in the mountain deserts too, there's a symbol there of transformation that's kind of subtle, because I've heard trees don't grow in straight lines, nor flowers in circles, and it's actually wholly untrue on the circle part, because, for example, in the New Mexico mountain desert, you get places where the mountain lions or bears have eaten certain flowers, and with their scat, the seeds can't germinate until they've gone through that Negretto process. And as it rains down, they actually go into a circle. And it was the strangest. You'll find circles of flowers everywhere in the New Mexico mountains, and it's just because of that process. So there's a subtle piece with the double ring of nature has gone through a process that's larger than them, that they are now stepping to steep in.
That's good.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to lighten up from the heavy-duty Christianity approach to this, so
I don't think that's necessarily. I mean, two of those texts are Gnostic, and
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm not trying to be a fundamentalist or orthodox about it. I just think it's very interesting that, it's pretty much like the sayings of Jesus describe this card exactly.
I feel bursting at the seams as well, Skip, because I have been a Christian.
Okay, go ahead, Samantha.
An agnostic, a witch,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different things in my life. And so right now it's a matter of tying them in together. Also, my mom was a Catholic, my dad is an African Methodist Episcopalian Black church. So it's so the way that I resolve that is that, so I'm not an atheist anymore, but when I was, it made me think a lot about, and I'm saying this because I think it might speak to the YouTube audience if anyone identifies as atheist or just trying to figure it out. The period of my atheism was helpful in that it allowed me to, I didn't want to give up the importance of the mythologies that I learned about, like Christianity. As Christian, I went to Christian school. It was a part of my heritage, right? So what I came up with is that it's all, metaphorical. And I think it's beyond metaphorical. But that being said, I think that hold on, come back to me, thought. It was a way of connect. Oh yeah. So since it's about Jung, right? So I'm assuming the viewers have an interest in Jung, even if they don't have an interest in something like what we're talking about now, which is Christianity, is the Father, Son, Holy Spirit can also be stages of your development. Take away the gender, right? So it's parent or adult, child, and then whatever Holy Spirit means to you. Is that we're integrating with those different parts of ourselves to become a whole and complete person. We are trinities, and different religions have trinities. It's not just Christianity. So just think about that.
That's right.
Good stuff there.
Certainly the last stage of individuation, in which we go back into our infancy, our toddlerness, our childhood, and grasp the numinosum that we were experiencing as an infant or in the womb or in the early time of our life, to capture that again from the position of individuation. That's the piece of work, is to reach back.
May I read a passage, Skip? Speaking to that, Colleen, with that process. It goes, the sun indicates who you really are, but maybe forgot when you were born. With a bright smile, you reconcile opposites. You have your own inner light to illuminate the way on your journey. This will always come and go, ebb and flow, like sunlight. Remember, even if your inner light dims, it is soon to return like sunlight. Visualize both dawn and dusk, feel their differences, and the sun in between them in that space. Feel the powerful changes that occur between the night and the day, and between the day and the night.
Okay. So I want to move on to some other perspectives on this. Nick, I wasn't intending to diss your presentation, not at all, but I do want to, in the course of these evenings, show many different perspectives, and so I want to show some other cards and some other ways of talking about these things, and in the hope that our viewers on YouTube and others will maybe get some take-home points out of it. That's my only thing. So
naturally, no offense taken.
I do appreciate your research into the Book of Thomas and so on, but I don't want to get too confused with Gnosticism and so on. So these four cards, the top two are Melissa Townsend's cards. They're pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into them, but the bottom two, one of them is from the Spirit Song deck that Samantha said she bought because she wants to have a I don't know, how did you put it, Samantha? A lighter?
I wanted to soothe my inner child and also just, yeah, be a counterpoint. It's very positive and innocent. It's not as much about the darker elements of our psyche.
Right. Right. Okay. So on the lower left, this is from the Spirit Song deck. The sun, vitality, and joy. And here is what Paulina Cassidy, whose deck this is, writes about it. Message. Hummingbird's rays reach out, warming everything in his path. He is your playful messenger of light and joy, and he thrives in an environment of beauty. As a healer, he draws energy from the nectars of life to create his own healing elixirs. With his ability to fly backwards, he taps into happy memories from the past, which gives him renewed energy. As with the sun itself, Hummingbird brings enlightenment to all in his presence. Enjoy and celebrate the fruits of your labor. Your future is bright and filled with beautiful possibilities. So keywords are vitality, freedom, energy, renewal, joy, celebration, enthusiasm, and enlightenment. The reverse message is the clouds of doubt and confusion have come to steal the spotlight. This feeling is temporary. The light you crave is ready to return. It's time to let go and enjoy yourself. And so when we're talking about reverse, we're talking about a way of looking at these cards that relates to divination, but and generally I don't want to talk about divination. I've already done that, but it's useful in some of these cards to share them. And then the other one I wanted to talk about was this, the sun on the lower right, which is from the Line Strider's Journey, and it's by Ciolo Thompson. And she has the same keywords, but here's what she says. The sun represents success, abundance, and fun. This card is about positive energy and joy. My drawing for this one is somewhat strange. A heavy sunflower dripping colorful goo is being fed on by little creatures. I wanted to depict the sustaining and life-nurturing power of light, as well as to remind the querent that when you shine bright, others will flock to you. The sunflower is the traditional symbol on this card, and the other aspects highlight the sense of overabundance. In a reading, this card indicates that people will be drawn to you and that you can bring a warmth and life into the world. Usually this card is telling you to say yes to the world and the opportunities you are presented with. Feed on the positivity the universe is supplying. Now is your time to shine. The natural pair to this card is the Hermit, the sun being 19 and the Hermit 9. However, the Hermit represents a more mature radiance, a self-contained old being who holds the lantern of wisdom, but is not part of the crowd. On the other hand, the sun is usually pictured as a naked baby, as naive and joyful as a person can be. This card speaks of youth, exuberance, and perhaps artificiality or shallowness, especially when paired with the food or one of the other, or the Fool or one of the other pages. Although the sun seems like an overwhelmingly positive card, I like to warn querents. When we talk about querents, we're talking about somebody who's getting a tarot reading. I like to warn querents against superficiality, shallowness, and irresponsibility. Remember that without the depth of water, the sun can create a desert. Okay, so that's that.
That's well said.
Are there any comments on these cards before I take them away?
Just that I like what, I always pay attention in these classes to like the integration of opposites. And that's really impressed into my psyche. And to me, my mixed race is just a metaphor for like black, white integrates, makes me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about what Raquel said about clarity, right? So I prefer to see it as, oh, it's sunshiny, I want to dance with my inner child, and that's all sweet and shit. But then life gets hard. So I like just that it doesn't, I like how we swing back and forth in this class about like there's the idealization, the ideal version, and then there's how do we actually apply this to our lives. So I guess I'm not speaking to any of the cards specifically, so I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to bring Raquel's comment back about if it's too saccharine for you, you can just think of it as shining the light of clarity.
I think that applies very much, Samantha, to this card. It's well said. Especially, I appreciated most that she called attention to the hummingbird flying backwards. It's the only bird that can do that. And the nature trade-off is that it can't walk. It can only grasp. So it is either flying or perched. But the flying backwards indicating retrieving treasures from the past. And we've been talking about inner child or youthful experiences, or going back, as Colleen mentioned, to just about birth and where we were in our most natural, uninfluenced form.
Right. And what I liked about the Line Strider card was the reference to, different levels of life that, the reference. Did I give you are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay. So coming off the sunflower is taking in all the sun that it can handle. But then it's also dripping life down to other life forms, which I think is good.
That's a really powerful visual expression too, of the giver of life, and showing that viscerally through the process.
Right. That's what I meant to show you.
Nicholas's Nicholas's comment about the bota versus do you mind putting it up, or you just want to move
the
forward?
bota and the Rider-Waite again?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to.
You don't want to go back?
Well, I mean, okay, I'll put it back, but we don't have to beat a dead horse. No.
No.
So to speak.
That's why I asked. So it's all right. I can hold it. It's not about these four cards.
We've had a lot to say about the bota. I want to give Jordan a chance to speak, because he's got a lot to say here, and I also want to get to the Deviant Moon deck, because so I have those teed up here, and but we can start with Jordan, since his card is on top here, and I'll make it bigger so that you can see it better. All right, thank you. So Jordan, go for it.
So I'll start at the bottom. The 4 golden pillared symbol is an abstraction that I made up when I created the deck, that is an abstraction of the Egyptian hieroglyph for wheat, which is 4 pairs of wheat or barley stalks leaned together on a common ground. So it was nourishing community fabric. So from that golden 4-pillared piece, which would be the basis of all identity, supporting all identity, then you have the marriage of the dark and the light figures of self, the light and the shadow. They are either emanating their light across the dark, or the dark across the light, or they are receiving, or both. As I move further up, you'll notice there are no pupils in the eyes. They're 2 full moons. The eye is really the 3rd eye, which is an eclipse up at top. There's the Ouroboros, snake bite in its tail, as the left dimple. And then if you look back to the symbol of fabric at the bottom, the 4 golden pillared piece, and if you imagine wrapping that, like heat it up to melt it and wrap that into a circle, Then the fabric at the bottom is fabric of self. And then the dimple on the right is the fabric of all. So the collective unconscious and the unconscious. There are 8 radiating fires, and then, of course, 8 corresponding infinities of darkness in between them. That's pretty much basically the structure that I utilized here in the cards. The mouth and the eyes don't really have a whole lot of intentional bearing other than to be congruent with the image visually. And that to me was putting self together in a fabric of all and a fabric of one, but at one and the same time was the intent.
Okay, great.
Any thoughts, anyone, with that visual?
You've stumped the stars, Jordan. So,
Crickets. Crickets. The crickets will have to go to the line strider and eat.
yeah, we're going to have to go to, this is the Deviant Moon Tarot, and we don't always read from it, but I'd like to tonight. So this is from the book, The Deviant Moon by Patrick Valenza, who also did the deck. It's quite a remarkable deck, as Jordan often tells us it's his favorite deck. And I don't know, I would blow hot and cold, but I think that Patrick Valenza has a very good understanding of the cards, and he's done a unique thing here, so it makes us think. And so here's what he says. The omniscient sun rises in the morning sky, bringing with it the miracle of a new day. Its brilliant light dissolves the darkness of the night and awakens sleepy minds from bad dreams. As the clouds of confusion melt away, the rain that once drenched the land in sorrow change into blazing drops of vibrant energy. That's the yuds there. The sun shines over the city and bestows joyful blessings on a pair of youthful lads. The boys have come together in separate physical forms, yet their spiritual consciousness unites them. Meeting here for the first time, they find themselves instantly attracted to each other through their similarities. Shared traits lead to a strong rapport, which will soon develop into a lasting, harmonious relationship. Undivided by walls, the twins stand arm in arm, creating a bridge of friendship, which, with souls joined and bodies invigorated by the sun's rays, they embark on the day's journey together. Upright meanings. Glorious days are ahead. When the sun comes up in a reading, it proclaims an end to dark times and the beginning of a new era of fulfillment. This life-giving entity will usher in a golden season of intense happiness and pure joy. A revitalized enthusiasm for life will come over you, which will immeasurably enhance every aspect of your existence. Allow this vibrant passion to emanate from your personality and influence everyone you meet. Know that you can achieve greatness through the cooperation of like-minded people who share your ascending aspirations. It is time to ignite your genius and reveal your mental brilliance. An enlightened state of consciousness is ready to dawn upon you. New ideas will burst forth from your energized mind, breaking through the haze of ignorance and self-doubt. By thinking clearly, you will light your world with shining success. Along with the renewal of your mental energy, the sun represents robust vitality, rejuvenation, and physical well-being. By nurturing and strengthening your body, you will experience glowing good health. Healing will take its natural course and save you from illness. Your stamina will be dramatically increased, giving you the power to turn your nighttime dreams into the reality of your day. Reverse meanings. When in reverse, the sun appears to be setting on your ambitions. Thoughts are clouded, energy is low, and confidence is sinking. Happiness seems elusive. You may feel unfulfilled regardless of the blessings that shine upon you. This inability to see the bright side of unpleasant situations blocks your potential for greatness. Realize that the enlightenment you seek is near, but you must concentrate your efforts to find it. Okay, really like that. And so I'm just going to show that this is from the Hermetic Tarot, which is a different approach, and the Lord of the Fire World, the sun. So it's just a very interesting image of the sun in that set of cards.
Very mandala.
Right, absolutely. All right,
You know,
comments there.
I opened up this quadrivium book, just kind of I-Chinged it. I open up, what do I see first? And there's a quote from Lao Tzu, which really applies, I think, here, if I may. The Tao gives birth to the one gives birth to the two gives birth to the three, and the three gives birth to the 10,000 things. So there's the all scales included in that may be I never thought about that from an individuation standpoint but putting all the scales in just those 4 lines is pretty concise.
Could we see that card again? It's so beautiful.
Which one? The Hermetic card?
One. The last card.
Yeah. Okay, yep.
I love that sun. And I love the asymmetry and perspective.
And the energy.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, terrific.
Oh.
Yeah, and somewhere here I do have their write-up, I think.
I love the sharpening and blunting of the rays from the top down to the bottom. That's quite dynamic.
I'm just gonna point out that there's always like 2 people portrayed in the cards, usually, and I think that shows kind of a duality, and that maybe not everything is as smooth as it may seem.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. Even with the Rider-Waite, the horse is the other quote unquote person. I mean, it could be a bumpy ride.
In this case, they're both feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what I'm actually thinking about also is that how the sun card can portray a different aspect of our integration as an adult, but with mostly childish figures. It's like it's not just about innocence and seeing things in a new perspective, but being an adult, but also realizing that you just are beginning something new as you were a child, you know, with the baggage of being an adult. Also, it's not.
And I think that's a good point. It's helpful then when you inspect your expectations. So you see through mirages, illusions, blind spots, past what you think you're supposed to do, but you're childlike, not puerile or childish, but you're childlike. You know, a 4-year-old will go, well, you know, no cake. What's the point? I mean, and that's their priorities are straight in that way, that there'll be that blunt honesty. So I think our bluntness kind of gets blunted in a way, you know, you got to keep the sharps and the flats for the music of life. And I think that's a really good point there with looking back to the child.
Okay, I did find the write-up from the Hermetic Tarot, such as it is. It's in their deck, so it's a very small one. But what it says is, the Lord of Fire of the World, Resh, head, Beneath the fiery sun, two children dance wildly, and roses appear between them and behind each of them. The roses represent the flowering of the solar influence. The dancing sirens are young, shameless, and innocent. The sun and its heat are a beneficent source of life and a melter of the waxen wings of ambition and curiosity. The sun radiates upon the children. It is Heru-Ra-Ha, Lord of the new Eon, meanings glory, gain, riches, sanctification, satisfaction, arrogance, reversed, unhappiness, possible broken engagement, loneliness. And I very much liked what Raquel was saying about how once you become an adult, you can see through to, you know, to better times, even when things are going very wrong in your life. And you know, that's, to me, that's a very important aspect of the sun, that you can see through to a better life and to better times.
I penned it in my book that even when you're sad, even when there's no sun, remember the sun is always shining still behind dark clouds.
Yeah. So, Tammy, I want you to tell me what the last word in the second line of your T-shirt is. It's
Yes.
Aries girl and soul of a witch. Did you
And
get
then
that?
it says the fire of a lioness, the heart of a hippie, and the mouth of a sailor.
There you go.
My husband, he must be proud of all that because he got me the shirt.
I guess, yeah. And you know, that's fair enough. I've given several of my girlfriends things from Wicked. Did you get that from Wicked?
No, actually, you can find this on the internet, and there's all the zodiac,
yeah,
with the same words, or even a different title and the same words. So,
that's even funnier.
But he only looked for Aries, so he didn't realize that they all said the same thing. And we did go to Wicked, and that was awesome. I have a few.
That is the last thing that Geneva and Debbie and I did in public before going into quarantine last year.
Yeah, pretty close to us too, for us.
Yeah, we had Wicked performed at the Hippodrome here in Baltimore, and that was the last performance of the Hippodrome until after COVID. So
I would like to ask a couple of things, and one is, Nicholas, what the last card that we just were all talking about with the mandala of the sun, there was a Hebrew letter there on the top left.
That's Resh.
Okay, I'm always interested to hear what he sees and how he defines those letters.
I'm glad you asked that, because I was going to also ask if Nicholas knew what the Hebrew sentence at the bottom also meant.
I can try to read it. I wasn't paying that close of attention to the actual letters, but the single letter that's associated with the card. And just to give you an idea, it's not so much necessarily that I'm just saying what I see, so much as with the Hebrew letter system, there's the letter, there's a numerical value associated with the letter, and there's also a pictograph or a symbol associated with it. So like the first letter, Aleph, also has the symbol of an ox attached to it, and so on throughout the entire alphabet. So this is the Hebrew letter Resh, and it means face, or more specifically, countenance.
Okay, you said that earlier then.
Yeah.
I just now put that together. Okay.
Nick and I actually had a little brief side conversation about we were inspired by what Skip was talking about with logos and arrows, and I think it might be valuable to the group because Skip brings up logos and arrows a lot, and Nick brought up if you're interested, Nick, but Nick brought up something that was new to me in terms of those representations. So
We
I
can
just,
talk
I'm
about it.
always interested in it, so fire away.
it might be controversial, Skip, because it's a little different than what you had to say, but no.
All right, go for it. Well, I did promise one person a response to a question he had, but you go ahead. Let's finish your thought here, Samantha, and then we'll go to that.
It's not my thought. It's Nick. Nick was talking about logos and
I can just say what I said very quickly. I was just saying that logos and eros understood in the context of this channel, I think, is a little bit different than the kind of wider context, because in some cases, you know, John the Baptist and several other people in the Bible equate the logos with the creative verb, with the word, and with the ability to speak things into action. And it's not rules and rationality and inanimate objects in your room. And eros isn't life, it's passion, it's the animation of all things necessarily.
Yeah, it is the animation of all things. It is life itself.
I like that.
It is, but life is also, it's not mutually exclusive. I mean, if the creative word creates, then that's not.
No, it's not mutually exclusive. They're always in operation together. Okay.
Yes, but the way I guess my qualms are like when I hear logos used, it seems to be more. I mean, there's so many different contexts in which these terms are thrown around. I guess I kind of want to operationalize it a little bit because.
Well, I mean, my reaction, Nick, is simply going back to what has been done to us by primarily the Christian religion. In making it sound like the logos is all there is, and we've therefore pushed life out of life, and that's my concern.
I would like to speak to this when Skip is done. Sorry, Skip.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead. I'm looking for a passage in my hand Bible here, but.
Okay. The way that I'm synthesizing what you guys have to say, like my integration, I put in the context of science of mind, which is what it's a text that religious scientists rely on. And it talks about how God's a Trinity and we're a Trinity. We have a conscious mind, a subconscious mind, and a body. And it says that God has the same thing. So the idea is basically that, Nick, you were talking about logos being the word used to create, and eros being love. And basically it's kind of like how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind are actually one mind, but we think of them as separate just to give our brain like a way of understanding. So I think that's the same thing with logos and eros, because both are required to create anything. But yeah, like we say in Science of Mind, that the word, just like God said, let there be light, and there was light, we humans have the same ability to manifest by making conscious decisions about what we think and what we say in order to create and enact our will in the world. That isn't in line with our higher power.
Yeah.
So Samantha, I come at this as a business executive. Okay, let me tell you where my reaction came from. It came from Bishop Barron, who's quite a personality both on the West Coast and on YouTube, and he has this YouTube channel called Words on Fire, right? And so Bishop Barron, I mean, he's literally a Roman Catholic bishop, and he claimed in an interview with Jordan Peterson that he is the chairman of a committee of bishops of the Roman Catholic Church, whose job it is to bring new parishioners into the church. That's their sole function in life in that committee. And he's the chairman, okay? And he says, but we're losing 6 for every 1 we bring in, okay? And he says, maybe we should teach the catechism better. And my reaction to that when he said that is, man, you're fired as my sales manager. You don't know how to connect your religion with new people.
Too dry.
And you're losing 6 for every one you bring in, because some people will believe, right? Some people will believe, but you have to have life into it somehow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to remind everyone about John 1, 4 and 5. Okay, so John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, this is where Christian theologians have hung their hat for the last 2,000 years. Okay, but what did it say just 3 verses later?
I know.
John 1:4. To him was life, and the life was the light of men. Okay. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And so the point is that the sun is the light. Okay, whether you give it a Christian context or a Tarot context, the sun is the light and the life. Okay, it's not words. I mean, you can burn all the Bibles you ever saw, and it wouldn't change the way people see.
Well, it's like the Word made flesh, and I'm going to use the word mythology, right? For anyone who's interested in Christianity and studying it, but not necessarily believing in the other stuff. That's why I use the word mythology. But in Christian mythology, the Word was made flesh. So to me, through the Son of Jesus. So that's also, some people say that's, again, reliant on older mythology where the Son, S-U-N meant God, essentially. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is the flesh to me is what you're talking about. You have to give it a body and a voice and senses and something you can touch and feel, something to move you beyond words. So I hear what you're saying in that regard, but it's just like my mind's exploding right now, because you can then say, well, the printing press made it possible to popularize these sacred texts as well.
Absolutely.
So it goes back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, but in the end, you have to have life in it. Okay.
Yeah.
The printing press can make a perfect Bible, but if nobody puts life into it, it's just a doorstop. Okay. So, a Bible, I mean, my bad way of referring to a Bible is just a black doorstop unless some preacher puts life into it on Sunday morning. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or unless you put life into it by what you say and talk about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I have something I want to read to you that I think is very profound, and it's about a talk that we're going to have on February 7th, but I have to leave my desk. And so let me ask this question, or make this comment for you folks to kick around while I...
Before we move on from the Logos and Eros thing, I just want to have one final thought here, and it's that by saying simply Logos and not establishing the context in which you use it, whether it be the religious Logos, the philosophical Logos versus Eros, the Jungian Logos versus Eros, it's like it's similar to saying, like, I'm a Gnostic, which is essentially a nondescript blanket term for this extremely convoluted concept. And it's like, if you say you're a Gnostic, it's like, okay, well, what does that even mean? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
That's how you skate between worlds. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you get away with shit. That's in a positive way. That's how you exist with all these conflicts. That's what I think.
I'd be that as it may. I'm just saying that it's like me saying, oh, my favorite color is blue, but then there's 15 shades of blue. So which one is it?
Exactly.
Well, I think it's important to bring this up as a contextual piece for the YouTube audience. And I also think for me, it's clear that Skip doesn't talk about storge or agape, and when he's talking about eros, so it's not the 4 kinds of love. He's talking about the eros in life.
4 kinds of love are all in eros.
They're all in eros, exactly.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the resh and
Right.
that symbol. And I think also too, this shows Skip heavily leans to this to magnetize and slow the pendulum of that other leaning that's over westernizing superficiality.
I also feel like there's a difference in terms of like Skip's generational point of view and Nicholas's generational point of view. And I don't know what it is, but I just want to observe that because, you know, we talked about gender.
I'm much younger than Nick, I could tell you.
Well,
Nick has had a lot of plastic surgery. I wasn't supposed to say.
just had some work done. Don't.
If you guys are my friend on Facebook, I think you would find my photo to be very hilarious. It's like a 100-year-old version of me.
Don't misunderstand me. I believe in logos. Okay, and
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
logo.
I needed to hear that you believe in it.
You needed to hear that. Okay, so
Or he
so
has a
here-
deep knowing.
Don't get to fight.
Here, I have a napkin that says joy on it. Okay. Without the logos, nobody could have made that napkin or anything else. You look around your room at your tree of life, Nick, or whatever's in your room, every single thing that's not a human being or a dog or a cat, every single thing requires the logos to have it made. Everything you ever owned in your home that is a solid object is made by the logos being 100% perfect, because you wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't perfect. And,
yes, but logos also means discourse sometimes too. So you see my confusion.
No, but the discourse is in the eros, okay, because that's in
not by what's conventionally meant by it. I mean, we could argue about.
Well,
that.
I mean, if you write down Saint Augustine and his discourses and so on. If he's actually having the discourse, as we are having now, this is eros, okay? But once somebody takes it down and puts it in a book, then it's not eros anymore. Okay.
Once someone,
you know, a big analogy.
Once someone punishes you for disagreeing, I think that's where it gets wrong. But
well, that's very eros.
This is the art. This is the art of conversation that we're having. So we're just constantly doing a dance between eros and logos and eros and logos, because you guys are having fun. That's why it's funny when I say, oh, like, stop fighting. It's kind of like a lighthearted way of like referring to the disagreement, but also the pleasure in what we're doing. Because even when we get on each other's nerves, we show up every single freaking week.
Okay,
well, if I may really quickly.
No, you may not. I want to go to Joseph's comment here. What do you guys think about the Sun card symbolizing how an individual reclaims his lost spiritual instinct? I'll read it once more. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about the Sun card symbolizing how an individual reclaims his lost spiritual instinct? Now, I'll let Jordan chair this particular response, and I'm going to go get what I want to read to you.
But Jordan, you're going to let us all talk after you talk. Right?
I'm the chair. You sit on me, and I support you, and you talk, and the chair has no voice.
Okay.
I'm going to be Logo's chair.
Okay. Go.
Please go ahead, Jordan.
No, I'm the chair. So Nick, Samantha, Raquel,
Tammy.
That's the statement that I wish I would have written about this card.
Yeah.
Well, actually, even in my book, I say the Sun card.
I thought you were sharing.
It's more like Disney now. The chairs move around like teacups.
I would like to speak. I like it.
Go.
Like that. You're like the wizard in Fantasia, right? Okay, so I'm the little broom, and you're gonna get me to whatever. I don't remember.
I'm the teacup.
Okay, if you want. To me, okay, you guys, if I'm gonna get vulnerable, I want to hear other people get vulnerable, okay? Because I'm always like saying like, oh, my heart's bleeding and I'm semi-re-traumatized by what I share, but then it all goes down.
Actually, if I may, as chair, I think that when we share, there's a responsibility for us to share, but not a requirement for immediate back and forth. I don't find that sharing emotional content is a negotiation.
Thank you, brother. You're totally right. I was just being random and trying to get some laughs before I maybe I shouldn't share that really personal stuff. But the answer to the person's question, I don't know who it was in YouTube. To me, you got to get real honest and go to, for me, that's a personal question. I could make it intellectual. I could probably disguise what I have to say in something intellectual, but I think the personal is best, right? So like, I'll give you an example. I'll give you something that feels safe. So I was raised Christian, right? I was baptized in a Lutheran church. I've gone to various, I went from a Lutheran church to, we moved from California to Texas. When I was in Texas, I went to Southern Baptist school for the first time. Then that was too conservative. Then we moved to an Episcopalian school. Then we moved to Catholic school. And like, I've been an atheist, like for real, had no faith, like even in anything mystical, right? And for me, and there's various different ways that this is played out, but what I've discovered for myself is that no longer works for me to believe in nothing. Well, at the same time, I understand even logos, right? Because if I only went to like, and I think when Skip says logos, he's talking about, my interpretation is it's pure intellect. If I go too far to my intellectual side, well, that's all about utility. There's no softness to it. It's like the Nazis. It's like the efficiency. We're going to kill everything we think isn't pure, right? And then that becomes evil. But when I go to Eros, right, in my pothead stage of life, I couldn't get anything done. I was lazy. I was just emotional and other problems I had. So at this point in my life, I try to integrate that, even if it doesn't have a name. I need some type of faith and some belief in spirit, metaphor, whatever, beyond that which I can see and sense with my senses and just like my intellect in order to be a full human being. So in conclusion, thanks for listening. In conclusion, the only way that I've come to, the question was about how do we come back to our unique self, our pure childlike self again as an adult. To me, it's actually through making mistakes. I needed to break the bone. I needed to have my faith destroyed, and I needed to question it and make serious mistakes, right? In order to come back and resolve. And I hope I've been stronger for it. So that's without giving a lot of specific examples, but that has been, it's been through my worst mistakes that I've actually had to learn and heal from.
Well, Samantha, could you speak? And I appreciate the child aspect, going back and integrating that. The question specifically, I think if I remember correctly, was reclaiming a lost spiritual instinct. So there's kind of a reference to nature, what the instinct would be, a natural piece. Could you speak to, or do you have any thoughts on spiritual instinct? And then I think his question was about the loss of it. And do we see this card as a pathway to reclaim that? Do you see that?
I'll say it in 2 minutes or less. This is my belief. I'm going to keep it brief, so I'm not going to get into a lot of proving of what I have to say. I'm just going to say it, is that
certainly
we cannot get away from the spiritual instinct. It's not possible. Even when we think we are, we're always searching for it. For me, even if you're going to logos, you're searching for spirit. And to me, that's part of the human experience. It's sort of like, you have to change your perception to see that everything is spiritual. Even you're questioning whether spirit is real, that's a part of that journey. As a human being, I need what I call God, what I choose to call God. I need it. It's part of my DNA, just like I needed my mother's milk, and sunlight and all of that stuff. And even in that dark time where I was like, well, God doesn't exist, and all of that, I was still having a conversation about God. So I think that person's question, if they're dealing with something difficult in their life right now, it's just realizing, like, you ask the question because it's inherent within you to do that. It's inherent within you to want to heal, and to that instinct is already alive and well. You just need to focus on that and let it expand and just be in the moment. And you're a precious child of God. The end. That's a
Okay,
bit.
I've got something I want to share with you. I have to share it with you. And then we're going to go back to the tarot. But
Non sequitur hour at
on February the 7th, we are going to have a talk by Jorge and Ferrer. Dr. Ferrer is a Spaniard. He lives in Ibiza, Spain, but he wrote this book and many other books. This is the one I'm currently reading at his request, Participation and the Mystery. And I can tell you that the people that Dr. Ferrer has been rubbing elbows with for the last 30 years probably are way, way ahead of where the tarot is in terms of spiritual development of the human species. And they've thought about it every which way but loose. And so I agree with Samantha entirely that we have a spiritual instinct and we need to learn how to properly exercise that. And so Dr. Ferrer, in his book, he closes his book with a poem, and it so encapsulates what I'm talking about that, and he put it in his book as a coda. So we're going to have the opportunity to discuss participation in the mystery with Dr. Ferrer on the 7th of February. I hope everybody will buy this book. It's by SUNY University Press, State University of New York University Press. Because I need help, okay? He's a very deep thinker. And so
I'll order that this week.
Will you send us the information about that book, or?
Yes, I will. When I put out the reminder for Wisdom Path on Thursday, I'll mention it and ask people to acquire it. It's called Participation in the Mystery, Transpersonal Essays in Psychology, Education, and Religion. Okay, so I guess I better read the entire coda, but this is the coda of this book. Okay, coda means this sort of sums it all up, folks, so I'm going to give it to you. I close this book on a more personal note by sharing a poem with you, the reader, a poem that evocatively conveys central elements of the shared participatory relationship humans have with nature and its human and non-human worlds. I call this poem Secret, not because it is hermetic or esoteric meaning, but simply because it secretly held me for years, giving me strength and hope in times of crisis and difficulty. My father, its author, was born and raised in the orchards of Murcia, that fertile region of the south of Spain that prides itself in that charmingly exaggerated way so defining of the Murcian spirit, on providing fruits and vegetables for the rest of the European continent. As my father moved to the culturally vibrant but highly industrialized city of Barcelona to work and start his new married life, essential seeds of his soul apparently decided to stay at the orchards. Then, as so often happens within the poet's heart, verse beauty began to sprout from the pain and isolation of a dismembered soul. This is why the poem you're about to read was originally called Solitude. Some years ago, with the author's consent, I changed the title from Solitude to Plenitude for a poem, as it is true of anything that carries meaning of what matters, is never an indifferent or static object, but rather a living presence whose inner nature metamorphoses as it encounters a receptive heart. As I rescued those essential seeds that my father's soul left in Mercian soil, it became obvious that a change of title was not only justified, but actually called for by the poem itself. In these times of rampant uprootedness from ancestry and tradition, we often forget that it is in the unfulfilled dreams of our parents where we can at times find the pearls that offer our souls the guidance they are longing for. What a magnificent miracle it is to discover that as we walk that path, not only the dreams, but also the dreamer can, at a deep level, begin to be realized. Although containing many layers of meaning, this is a very simple poem. My father, as Charles Bukowski once said of himself, does not have grandiose thoughts or thoughts of a philosophical nature, and so his poems tell us about very ordinary things. As do many visionary texts, however, this poem lures us into a journey. But this is not an invitation to the hero's journey, where a masculinized self leaves its motherland, encounters pitfalls and battles monsters, and triumphantly returns with a renewed sense of empowered solar identity. Speaking of the sun, I believe that this poem tells us about a much lesser known kind of initiation, where the soul leaves her social, psychological, and even spiritual routines to delve anew and without struggle into the deeper sources of life, of nature, and of the mystery, so that we can return in peace with the flavor of the winds between our hands. Before I leave you to enjoy the poem, however, let me tell you another secret. For its magical power to be conjured, this poem needs to be read out loud and with both tenderness and passion. Hence, I invite you to take a deep breath, drop deep into your heart, and allow these words to perhaps narrow the gap between you and your boundless potential. Okay, here's the poem. And as you see, this poem already moves me very greatly. I'm going to ask Dr. Fadar to read it also on the 7th of February. So I will apologize in advance for my hiccups in trying to read it, but here's the poem. Plenitude. If one day you cannot find me, do not think that I have gone crazy, but sane. Look for me far away, where people fly like birds over immense valleys, where the sad beetles bathe their bodies in dew and clothe themselves in black velvet. Look for me far away, where the cows give milk in abundance and the languid sheep gather like white clouds, where the oxen gaze with gentleness and the horses with peaceful tails. Sorry, I got misled by the Spanish because he's got Spanish and English side by side. So, okay. So horses with peaceful tails feel the caressing of the wind where I lay my head down without a watch measuring the time, up the mountain toward the light and the silence. There you will find me lying in the grass with time blossoms, this is time, T-H-Y-M-E, time blossoms between my lips, gazing at the condor and at the golden eagles flying and flying. There you will find me learning to live from the insects and from the wild birds, from the domestic animals, learning from the birds. I do not feel ashamed. And it may be that I even learn to fly like the bees, to sleep with the hens, and to converse with the lizards. And I will breathe freely against the wind through the highest peaks. I will listen for the voice from afar of the countryman who sings love songs to his beloved, and the bronze bells sounding in the far valley. I will listen to the voice of the trees, of the breeze, and of the water. I will use my new eyes for the first time to look as far as my gaze roams, where the crickets sing, where the cicadas sleep. And when you find me, I will kiss your breath with human warmth. And I will tell you,
It's all right. It's
I will tell you what they taught me: the wind, the day, the night, the light, and the stars. And we will learn together for all time to live in peace with the flavor of the winds between our hands. It's signed Jose Antonio Noguera Jimenez. Okay.
Thank you, Skip.
So you want to know about Eros? That's about Eros.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skip.
You're welcome. I'll make a copy of that page and send it out to you, and you can read it in Spanish, Raquel, which would probably be a pleasure.
Yeah, it would.
Pardon?
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll scan a copy of it and send it to you, and then I urge everyone to get Dr. Ferrer's book and to come to the session on February the 7th. And
just the smell of the wind and the idea from orchards, and then the thyme blossoms in his mouth. I mean, that was like long form Rumi to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what do we want to talk about? I have some more cards to look at.
I want to say something. I loved the question about reclaiming your spirituality, and that this card could indicate that, because I had to lose religion to reclaim my spirituality. I had to leave it all behind, to the point that because I was raised not only in a fundamental religion, but my parents didn't think it was fundamental enough, so they started their own. And my daddy did the preaching. And
you're a PK, okay?
Oh my God! Wow. So I'm the black sheep. So I had to keep changing religions and studying each one, and then this isn't good enough, and I had to leave all that behind and drop all religion, to the extent that when I would hear somebody bring a Bible verse up or start to pray, I would just cringe, like I'm still detoxifying from that. In this study, and watching and listening to all of these talks, when Nick reads a Bible verse, it has a new meaning for me. It's not a weapon someone's throwing at me. It's not an insult. It's not a description of me failing. It's got a new meaning. It's been reclaimed. And I love the idea of that card doing this, because I had to lose everybody else's structures and everybody else's interpretations to reclaim
what it's all about.
What was in me. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Tammy. And I would just say, I don't think it's to the same degree, but I think it might kind of cast the illusion that I'm extremely religious or grew up in a overtly religious setting, but you know, I guess I did in a certain sense. Like I grew up in the South. Most of my family, they're Southern Baptists, and you know, I can remember being 4 and going with my grandmother to the butcher shop after school, as I did pretty much every day. And I asked my grandmother if Santa was real, and she was like, "Well, what do you think?" And at that point, I was like, "Oh my God! So God's not real. The Easter Bunny's not real. Santa's not real." And like, you know, I know to somebody with more intellection, that's probably intellectually insulting, but to a 4-year-old, it was kind of like, "Oh my God." And I remember I went home and I climbed a tree and watched the sunset and just asked myself, like, how will I be able to be a good person without the notion of God? So it was a very traumatic experience for me too, to kind of have my own personal reckoning with religion, especially at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of come back to everything with my own understanding. And, you know, I definitely had a distaste for popular Christianity for the larger part of my life. So all of those Bible verses have a completely different meaning to me as well. And I'm glad that we could share that.
It's interesting that even they refer to atheists in the Bible, and even Jesus was a reformer, depending on, you know, who you ask. You could say he was a charismatic cult leader. You know what I mean? You could say, so you can interpret it so many ways, but that he questioned the religion. He was born into Judaism, you know, so he questioned the religion of his time. So I think it's all about, like, a tarot card. We can look at a tarot card with fixed meaning, and then we can look at a tarot card like a Rorschach ink blot test, where we're projecting meaning, and it's in the co-creation, right? Of those two, our subconscious minds and the fixed meanings, and the person who's reading for you. In this case, we're doing it through the co-creation of our conversations and our personal emotional relationships. And, you know, playing defense for one person speaking a little too much, but we also care about them. And then another person wants to speak, you know, it's happening all the time. We're co-creating meaning right now, and we're co-creating meaning with the YouTube audience. So it's just over and over and over.
Well, precisely. But what we have to be forgiving to our parents about is that they can't teach us anything without words. Okay.
Right.
And they can't teach us anything about a spiritual life without words. And so over 2,000 years in the West, you know, we have Jews and Christians who have used words to teach the young about God. Okay. The question is, at what point do the words become an iron cage around you? Okay. And at what point can you step out of the iron cage and see, oh, this is what they're talking about, and maybe they didn't even know it. Okay. I mean, in my own parents' case, all this came to me after I was long away from home. So, and I never had very deep conversations about this with my own parents. So they probably never thought about any of the issues that are in Dr. Ferrer's book. And they probably, you know, never looked at the tarot because they thought it was esoteric and therefore woo-wee woo, and therefore not something that they should think about. But oh, by the way, it is something you should think about, because these 21 archetypes are in our lives every day in every climb and place. And what we're trying to do here is to point out that there are many different ways of pointing back to the same thing. Right?
Colleen had raised her hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Colleen.
You're on mute, Colleen. Unmute.
Sorry. I think in reference to Christianity or whatever religion you're going back to in order to make sense, a very good teacher that I had said that in order to take your coat off, you need to know how it was made. Or in order to get out of that cage, you need to know how the cage was made.
Right.
And so I think that that's something about understanding our parents and the time, as Skip was saying, you know, the tools that they had to work with. When I think of the tools that my ancestors had to work with, I think they did a pretty good job, actually.
Absolutely.
I am working on that forgiveness part. I'll just be honest. I mean, it's on YouTube. They're never going to find this channel anymore. But future generations will know Samantha Wright had issues with her family. But we I just wanted to say, I just want to try to find a little conclusion here now that I riled myself up. That for me, part of that individuation process, I understand forgiveness is eventually a part of that, but there's also that stage of saying no. And I'm very aware right now of looking at the thing, you know, I talk about my race a lot, and like, those are things that connect me with my family. Like I can kind of obsess on these things that connect me with my family, but there's also decisions that I'm leaving personal, but places where I draw the line of how I'm different. And those are significant as well. So that's me needing to forgive myself for the anger and the unresolved things, and to be okay with that, that's part of my identity at this point as well. And I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Yeah.
Okay, this being a, go ahead, Colleen, sorry.
No, forgiveness, yeah, the forgiveness issue is a separate issue, I think, you know, but it's more like understanding.
Yeah, I wanted just to point out that I come from, you know, a place of colonization, and that type of religious aspect comes with a lot of violence between us, especially the Catholic Church. So I did not have a religious experience, even though I always studied in Catholic schools, but I was not raised as a Catholic because, you know, for us, it doesn't work. But what I understand what you guys are saying of like forgiving our parents and stuff like that. But I think forgiveness and understanding are two different things. But there's also the third part that's not being that acceptance. You know, like understanding what happened doesn't mean that you will accept that to happen again in your life. So I think that's also like very, because once you get that you are different, just because you understand, you have more tools even to understand life better than they had, you know. So, and you understand that you can also like forgive, which more ease in your heart, because that's not your life, you know, that's your parents' life. And your mistakes are going to be different than their mistakes, you know. So I think that's easing it up a little bit.
Yeah, and we stand on their shoulders. I mean, it comes down to the support of what we learn, what we learn of their pain, what we learn of what dreams that they have that they stuffed or got, you know, what was their issue. And I think that empathy piece too comes around to that. Colleen used a powerful word, understanding, more than even forgiveness, because it's more of an inert word. And forgiveness implies that you have to be okay with it, or you look another way. But understanding you can connect with someone when you understand, and you don't have to agree to understand. And I think that's a really important word here that I appreciate you brought up. And Tammy, that you started this kind of motherlode gold vein of this conversation, because I think it gets down to that place of, you know, we want to be ourselves, but we also don't want to exile. And we also don't want to not put responsibility where it belongs. So there's a whole spectrum here.
Well, there is one quote from Jung, and this being a Jungian page, sort of, which applies to all of us at all times. And it relates to this issue and forgiveness and everything. And this is the quote. "The great thing is now and here. This is the eternal moment. And if you do not realize it, you have missed the best part of life. You have missed the realization that you were once the carrier of life, contained between the poles of an unimaginable future and an unimaginably remote past. Millions of years and untold millions of ancestors have worked up to this moment, and you are the fulfillment of this eternal moment. One should take each moment as the eternal moment, as if nothing were ever going to change, not anticipating a faraway future, for the future always grows out of that which is. You must live life in such a spirit that you make in every moment the best of the possibilities." And
Beautiful.
I'm dying.
I just have one thought that I want to add, and I've alluded to this sentiment before, but it was, for me, I expressed it, I feel best when my presentation, and we reiterated it a couple of times, where I was saying you need to ask yourself what you're in service to. And that reckoning point came for me at a time when I realized that, so much of my endeavors are defined by studying religion, even though I felt myself to not be a religious person, whether it be studying tarot, astrology, the Kabbalah, Gnosticism, whatever it was. And then it kind of came to a point where I realized, okay, I guess I must be a pretty religious person if that's all I really think about, even if it's counter to conventional religion. And one thing that really helps me to drive this point home is one of the meanings of Israel means he who wrestles with God. And that for me always says, not necessarily he who accepts everything on faith and it's just a sheep to the shepherd, but, he who really grapples with the idea of God.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody in these circles relates to that. So I just wanted to share that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a huge theme with warriorship also. I mean, the philosopher, the warrior was the artist, the philosopher, the poet, all of it. They dealt with life and death, and they couldn't not be, in a way. And so I appreciate that, Nick. I mean, it's coming to that is my grandfather was a Methodist minister. So my dad's the PK, the preacher's kid. And so my dad's fun hobby was finding a better Bible in the original Hebrew and translating it himself.
Yeah.
Because some of these passages seem to have poor syntax. I mean, so, when you get someone whose hobby is being a biblical scholar in his spare time from not being the English professor and all that. So I kind of didn't want to touch the Bible with a 10-foot pole. And I would, as Tammy used the word cringe, I mean, I called it, I got the grossed out willy shivers. It's like, and then I found myself one night typing the Bible on my typewriter, triple spaced, because now I'm going to read between the lines and I'm going to take notes on the whole thing. And I'm going to say what the story, I didn't get very far. That was
I
kind
did
of
the same thing. I've done that too.
Yeah, and I called it my brainwashing. I spread out the lines. I crowbarred the ribs open with my spreaders, and I started going in, and this is my gig now. And it was just poetry and thought and metaphor and like a big sandbox.
So you're from Texas, right?
Originally, yeah.
You've heard of the Bright Divinity School?
I don't like how it sounds.
That's
wow.
my family.
I lived there when
That's
I was
intense.
8.
My great grandmother was a Bright, and that was her
intense.
first cousin that founded the school.
Is this fundamentalist?
Oh, it's with a capital F. They
Wait,
take
but
the fun out of fundamentalism.
Thank you, Jordan. No, thank you, Jordan. But I'm sorry, Tammy. I was taking a bio break during half of your share before, so I was just curious if there's anything you wanted to add in regard to that from your own mouth, you know, about Bright School or fundamental.
It's just that that's how involved my family has always been, and they're always been the elders, the preachers, the deacons, and then I go there with my son. I went to that college to do something, and I was like, I looked it up. Yeah, that was a linear religion family thing.
Mhm.
No have way with words right now, but that's my family, and that's
your lineage. But your
it's my lineage, but I knew all the Brights. So so I was raised.
Yeah, well, the eternal moment is always with us, okay? And it represents, it directly speaks to the magician card in the tarot, okay? Which is at every moment, you have the assets in front of you that you need to go where you want to go, to do what you want to do in every moment. And what you decide to do will make a difference in terms of what happens in your life 5 minutes from now, 5 weeks from now, 5 years from now. And so we can all change the way we are with our loved ones and so on. I'd like to get back to the topic of the night, though, which is the sun. And just for fun, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to share with you the sun from the 3 new decks that I got. And I'm not sure I have anything to say about them, but there they are. So this is the Czar's Tarot, which has
really like.
Look at that iconic one. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, every card has religious point to it. Then this is the Wild Unknown Tarot, and I'll leave it to you to work it out. And the third one is the Monara deck, and I'll leave that to you to work it out.
Does anyone know why I'm laughing?
Why are you
laughing?
Do.
Because I see a butthole. I see an anus on.
Those things are meant to be left.
Is that what that black hole sun song
I'm not
means?
good at that. I'm sorry. I'm just not good at keeping things to myself. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'll feel embarrassed later. I'll have a delayed reaction tonight. I'll be like, oh my God, why did you say that?
No,
I will never listen to the song Black Hole Sun the same ever again. Thank you, Samantha.
I'm not the only one who saw it. I think
no,
Raquel
you're not the only.
No, but I didn't see it, but now I can't unsee it.
I'm just the only one who said it. Anyway.
Samantha,
Okay,
I was wondering.
Thanks for accepting me. Go ahead, Tammy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no, I've heard you talk about the Mother Peace Tarot, and I have it too. And I would like to hear what you think about the card from that one.
The sun card?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have to actually see it. I can only talk about Mother Peace in a broad sense at this moment, but I'd have to. Do you have access to it? Because if you know where it is, I could come up. Oh, there it is. Okay, so when this has come up in divination for me, for reading for someone else, I just talk about like joining the circus. It's a card of happiness. I'm a little more vague about it.
That's what the Cirque du Soleil, doesn't that mean the circus around the sun?
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
Cirque du Soleil. And also there's that image in the Mother Piece is kind of an homage reference to Picasso's dancers. He has a ring of dancers, very simple. It's not very abstract. It's a little stick figure-ish, but I could try to find it.
Okay, does anyone want to hear about the Mythic Tarot, the Starman Tarot, the She-Wolf Tarot?
Yes.
I want to hear about your new decks.
The Splendor Solace.
All of those, please.
And I have one interesting called the Lilith Bible Tarot.
Ooh.
Okay, that
nice.
so
Never heard of
Raquel is calling for the Mythic Tarot. All right,
Yeah.
so it so happens, amazing, by synchronicity, it's on my desktop right now, Raquel. So I'm gonna put it out there. How's that?
Great.
So you don't have to hold it up anymore, and I will read at least some of what Liz Green has to say about it. Okay, so on the first page of her descriptions, which you see, it has the card and then it has little sidebars, so I'll read that much at least. The card of the Sun portrays a classically handsome, beautifully proportioned man with golden hair, crowned with laurel leaves and bearing on his head the golden disk of the sun. He has golden wings and wears a short robe of dazzling white. In his right hand he holds a bow. In his left he cradles a lyre, and that's Lyre. A quiver of arrows hangs behind his back. Framing him are two columns and a portico built of pale golden stone. Behind him, a golden green landscape dotted with laurel trees glows under the hot blue sun, or blue sky. Okay, on the left, it says, the laurel wreath was used to crown the victors of athletic and artistic contests. The striving spirit and the crown of victory are both aspects of the sun god. On the right, it says, if sorrows and fears were brought to Apollo in a song, he would take them away. Music as an expression of the sun god transforms our darkness into light and meaning. And underneath it says, Apollo's far-shooting arrows earned him the epithet Apollo Longsight, thus implying that he is an image of the part of us that can see the purpose and reason for experiences long before we have emotionally processed them and left them behind. Now that's a good point there. Okay, what else should we read here? Let me read on a little bit. Here we meet the radiant sun god Apollo, the gentleman of Olympus, and lord of prophecy, music, and knowledge. His nickname was Phoebus, which means the brilliant, and in myth he delighted in the heights of the mountain peaks. He was the son of Zeus by Leto, the goddess of night. Unlike other children, Apollo was not nourished on his mother's milk. He was fed nectar and sweet ambrosia, and immediately the newborn baby threw off his swaddling clothes and was endowed with manly vigor. He set forth with a bow and far-shooting arrows that the smith god Hephaestus had made for him, seeking a place for his sanctuary. But the place he chose was a mountain gorge which formed the lair of the vicious female serpent Python, a beast sent by Hera out of jealousy to destroy Apollo's mother, Leto. The god killed Python with one of his arrows, crowned himself with sacred laurel, and called his new sanctuary Delphi. At the shrine of Delphi, he established his oracle, spoken by a priestess who became known as the Pythoness. Meanwhile, he left Delphi every year in the autumn and traveled in the mysterious land of the Hyperboreans, where he could enjoy an eternally bright sky. Apollo was the enemy of all darkness and could lift from men the curse of blood guilt and the toils of sorrow. But he was a tricky deity, for his oracle was double-tongued and elusive, and his arrows could slay not only monsters but also men. Thus he was the god of sudden death, as well as being a healer who drove away illness, and shadows. Prophecy, normally the gift of the underworld deities, was gradually appropriated by Apollo, and he himself became the embodiment of far-reaching vision. Shall I go on?
While you do go on, please do. If everyone would zoom in, that whole story is sketched out on the right side of the pediment above.
Yes,
on.
it is.
You see the serpent, and you see it's trickily simple, but the whole story's up there.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Look at the earth, the sphere, the serpent on the left.
Okay, yep.
And
you're
then
right.
the writing, there's a word above the sphere, and then you get the I think that's a lionfish.
Yeah, I don't know.
There.
But you're quite right. It is all there.
And it's so subtle. That's what a joy to have the words that she's writing there actually visually told in the pediment.
Yeah. Okay. So on an inner level, Apollo, the sun god, is an image of the power of consciousness to dispel the darkness. Now, keep in mind, Liz Green is a Jungian analyst, a bona fide Jungian analyst. So she speaks with the voice of gods. Okay, so on the inner level, Apollo, the sun god, is an image of the power of consciousness to dispel the darkness. Like Hecate, who under the name of Artemis was Apollo's twin sister in myth, the god personifies something greater than one individual's capacity to gain knowledge and insight. Apollo is an image of the urge toward consciousness, which exists in all life, and therefore he is the natural complement and antithesis of Hecate. Through many long centuries and through the rise and fall of many cultures and civilizations, the thrust toward knowledge and the craving for freedom from the bondage of dark, unknown nature has driven humankind toward impressive, although dangerous, heights. Apollo represents the spirit of intellectual striving, combined with the vision of the future, which encompasses an ideal of perfection. Thus, the fools encounter with Apollo, the sun god, brings him the hope and clarity of daylight after a long night of waiting in the womb of Hecate. Through many trials and losses, the fool has maintained his goal and his integrity, but the card of the moon is a dark place where, although the end of the journey is near, the fool has lost both his confidence and his power of action. Apollo is the dispeller of fear, and his bright light casts away shadows. The shadows of the moon are like the night fears of childhood, where we feel small and unimportant in the face of the vastness of the unknown, threatened by gigantic shapes that loom in the darkness. Apollo is an image of that hope and faith which spring from not from one's personal striving, but from all of us, a human inheritance of nobility and determination, which can restore the fool's faith in himself, because it is also a faith in the meaningfulness and purpose of the human journey. The card of the sun symbolizes the indomitable spirit that has always struggled against superstition, helplessness, ignorance, and bondage to fatalism and despair. It is this spirit which battles with the serpent Python, the embodiment of the negative power of blind instinct and primitive fear. Apollo's music also lifts us out of ourselves, for music speaks with a transpersonal voice, crossing cultures and centuries and embodying human tragedy and triumph. Thus, Apollo is a great deity, respected by all the gods, and even the Moira have once made subject to his will, although only once. But the sun god, too, is ambivalent, for too much light too soon can kill if knowledge is premature, and destroys the necessary time and darkness for things to gestate. Therefore, the card of the sun follows the card of the moon. The burning heat of the sun can scorch, for it does not respect nature's laws. Thus, Apollo in myth was often rejected in his advances toward women, for his light was sometimes too bright. On a divinatory level, the card of Apollo, the sun god, augurs a time of clarity, optimism, and renewed trust. It is possible to understand the pattern, to plan for the future, to move forward. The curses of the night are dispelled, and the fool is now armed with foresight, purpose, and a faith in the striving human spirit. Thus, he encounters that great masculine principle in life, working through both men and women, which moves forward toward the goal. Okay.
Cool. Can I talk?
Yeah.
Think we still get along, right?
Well, I think maybe we should let Raquel talk first.
Okay.
This was her request.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I think I want to say is that Greek mythology has this way of like, there's a very difference between the moon card and the sun card. The moon card is kind of like that superstition thing that she talked about, and how in the sun card, when you have a little bit of rationality into what may be seen first as superstition, becomes a prophecy, and how it's a difference for them, very distinguished difference between being in the superstition side of life and believing in prophecies, because even though it's the same nature, prophecy is something that will occur, you know, and it's more important to them. So I think it's very interesting to see those oppositions. You know, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. It's not about that, but the opposite things. It's really interesting to point that out, I think.
That's a really good point, because the difference between the snake oil salesman and the oracle. I mean, you get the foolish, superficial magic, and then you have the oracle at Delphi. It's a real thing.
Because I think that what that card is actually saying, that those meanings is always about, like, if you can be guided by another person, that is the problem. The sun can only guide, can't be guided by another person. So that is the problem of the oracle, you know, because it's another person that is saying your prophecy. You have to get your prophecy inside of your own soul, you know. That is the point, I think. You have to be the oracle of yourself. It's not actually tossing the oracle away in the trash, but you have to become your own oracle, you know, like stop listening to everybody else, listen to yourself.
And that's why the oracle doesn't say 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of butter, half a cup of sugar. I mean, they're very vague in a metaphorical way, so that it speaks to how the mind works, so that you can take that in.
Right. And you know where prophecy comes from, right?
Is it prophet?
Prophecy. Well, it comes from prophets. Yeah. Prophets were people who understood history and understood what would come following, right?
Pattern.
And so they understood the patterns of life before, and they could make correct prophecy. And you know, I've occasionally dabbled in prophecy, and usually I do fairly well. Probably all of us do in some way, because we're all quite intuitive. So that the skill of being intuitive is the skill that makes a prophet. You
I also
can,
don't think a prophet would take any joy in being a prophet either. I mean,
no, because sometimes the prophecy is really ugly.
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
people
Well, and
like
the suffering.
Cassandra.
I mean,
It's
the
like
exiled suffering.
Cassandra, the prophet Cassandra, she was cursed to see the future, but no one would believe her.
I've suffered that curse for years, and part of the problem was I named a daughter Cassandra, and I didn't realize that I was making a comment about myself. It was a projection.
How did she do though?
Huh?
She did okay. She did okay.
She's doing okay. She is
So
doing
you didn't
okay.
curse her with the name. It was
No, she's not cursed with the name, but I'm cursed with the curse.
That's why you had to start this channel. Maybe it's selfish, but I'm glad because we get
I
the
can
channel.
see the future, but nobody will believe me.
I think it's also interesting too. I mean, you mentioned cycles and patterns and all of that stuff. And I mean, what more is astrology than just studying cycles and patterns? And I've mentioned this before, but Nostradamus pretty much based all of his prophecies on astrology, and several other people did too. And I mean, I'm sure that there are more than I'm aware of. I'm aware of only a couple of people that really tended to do that, but I mean, that's one way of looking at these cycles and the way in which they invariably repeat themselves, and large historical happenings will occur at these points in time. And Nostradamus' prophecies are pretty vague, but I think it kind of gets to what you're saying too, Jordan, to where it's like they are intentionally vague, so kind of a catch-all, but it's almost the cycle you pay attention to is more real than the prophecy.
Yeah, the point is like divination. It's not that you can predict the future for the person you're reading for, but if you spit out enough things, something is going to hit, and that's the way divination works.
Well, and even the vague terminology of, if you say, a great scourge would fall across the land. Well, is that a tidal wave? Is that a pandemic? Is that a big wind? Is it a president? Is it mosquitoes? Is it locusts? I mean,
metaphorically, someone will automatically come up with whatever that means in their own head.
Right.
And yeah, that's why I forgot what I was going to say.
You have a scourge.
Okay, well, this is my opportunity to ask once again. I still have 6 cards more, at least. And
let's see some cards.
So we could look at the She-Wolf or the Splendor Solace, the 5th Tarot, or the
Manara,
the Starman. I already showed the Manara.
Oh, Splendor.
Yeah, I go Splendor Solace and She-Wolf.
Okay, well, they're on different slides.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
You prophesied that?
I prophesied. I just didn't tell anyone because you wouldn't believe that I knew the future. But now you don't believe that I knew the past.
We're actually all the same person, and it doesn't make sense. That's all I know. I think everything is everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about not making sense, because Mark Twain put it, he said, someone said truth is stranger than fiction. And he goes, well, of course it is. Fiction has to make sense. Truth? No, not so much.
Very good. Okay, so this is your next 4 cards. So we'll go to Splendor Solace first, which is, I don't understand.
Child's Play.
I don't understand why Alchemy of the Sun is indoors. If anybody can explain that to me, that would be terrific.
I think it's about identity, and
also
the person.
The alchemical operations always took place in the alchemical laboratory, not necessarily outside. I mean, you're trying to make gold here.
Right.
Well, they're all white, seriously white.
Yeah, well,
like
this is
cherub white.
A lot of white little men babies, because at that point they didn't know how to draw in the way, or didn't know how to paint in the way that we do. That's why they look so.
Actually, humanity
they haven't been exposed to the sun, maybe.
And actually, humanity at that point had not evolved to have the color that we have now in a more evolved society.
No, that's not true.
The florist. The
Okay,
color.
reading on.
Also, it could be an indication of social class because peasants had to work outside, but the people who lived inside, this is in Europe, okay, by the way, because it's not the case in Africa and many other places in the world. The peasants worked the land, they got tanner, they lost weight, they were thinner, but the really pale white fat ladies were considered really beautiful in Europe because it was a sign of privilege. They got to stay inside and sit around.
Every work trace is
In Europe.
bad for identity. Like anything that can be resembled as a working person, as a working feature, is not good.
Right.
Okay.
Depending on, yeah.
You want to pretend you're privileged, is that right?
Who?
Me?
Well, I mean,
One.
Raquel is making an equivalence between work and the unavailability of privilege, right?
I think it was a critique, but I know Raquel can.
Yeah, I understand it's a critique. Yeah, because we all have to work.
Yeah.
And even my wife is accusing me of death by desk. So, so I have
to work.
Yeah, so we both have to walk every day, but I got her a foot massager, and that seems to have helped peace in the house. Okay, so I'm reading from Splendor Soulless Tarot, yeah.
And it's important to note the gold clothing, the red clothing, and then the 2-3 blue clothings.
Okay, and why is that?
The red king and the white queen, and it feels to me here the queen is differentiated between all the cherubs, alchemically speaking, and then the gold is the established inner light that's at work on these people.
Okay, good. So here's the official transcript. I am child's play, inner alchemy of the sun, Lord of the fire of the world. I come that you may experience life's generosity, enjoying glory and riches in all worlds with the same ease as a loved child plays among friends. I am artisan of the collecting intelligence, a gathering for all within the zodiac circle of the fixed stars. All Mercury moon experiences in the four worlds are woven into my alchemical path. I am the inner vision of the child of the sun, delightedly heading Sol's annual procession through the garden of cosmos. Through my lady astrologia operates through me, Lady Astrologia operates her liberating art, bringing light from the 12 starry palaces above to illumine matters in the 12 terrestrial houses below. Dear alchemists, these are mysteries of the many-colored alchemical coagulatio, safe in the nursery of the higher consciousness, presided over by the mother mercurial spirit, comes from the waters to receive new body and substance. In the play of the elements, all has a voice, a face, a name. Personality is illumined and can be trusted, for the higher powers care for the lower. Rejoice in this stage of your work, for old sterility is vanquished and all is fruitful once more. Okay.
Yeah, the inner alchemy really struck right when that started out.
I just looked ahead to next week. The card is Judgment we're going to work on, and they have it titled at the top of the page, Women's Work. So I guess we can all be judged. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to I'm going to pass up the fifth tarot. I just want to show that it's a very beautiful card, and with lovely sunflowers and sun, and I don't know, I guess that's the sun and something like the orbits of the planets.
That's a crop circle.
Yeah, that too. Okay. I thought Stasia Burrington had a very succinct writing about the sun card, so I thought I'd read it to you. It's very simple. The sun is hot and blinding in its clarity. This card indicates success, joy, warmth, and happiness. It is simple, brilliant, enthusiastic, and indicative of good things and positive outcomes. This card indicates attained knowledge, personal power, and enlightenment. Reversed, coming to the wrong conclusion, lack of clarity. And then there's a quote from Bill Murray. Quote. A quote. Life is so damn short. For fuck's sake, just do what makes you happy.
That's Bill Murray. Yeah.
That's Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Shit, but how do we do it? I don't know.
Okay.
Actually, it's funny, the synchronicity there. I read an article with an interview with him this morning, actually. And he said that the best advice he ever got in terms of acting was relax. And that when he relaxes into life, it happens more easily.
Cool.
And so that I love is, for fuck's sake, it's like, that's so Bill Murray.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from the Tarot of the Divine. And this is the sun god Ra, Egyptian deity. In the beginning, the sun god Ra emerged from the waters of Nun as a geometric Benben stone. The sun rose and passed across the sky for the first time. Ra was all-powerful and could take many forms. He was the morning sun Khepera at dawn, the full sun Ra at noon, and the evening sun Atum at sunset. His power was in his secret name and in his ability to call into being that which he named. And so he spoke the names of Shu and Temut, the god of air and the goddess of moisture. They in turn gave birth to the earth god, Geb, and the sky goddess, Nut. Ra tried to separate Geb and Nut by placing Shu between them, but Nut still managed to give birth to the deities Osiris, Set, Isis, Nephthys, and Horus the Elder. Ra proceeded to name all things in Egypt, including the people, and set himself as Pharaoh over all. Thus Ra ruled for some 1,000 years, but in the shape of a man. And so he grew old. Eventually, humans began to mock his elderly appearance, which angered Ra. He then sent his daughter Sekhmet to slaughter humanity. She did so with such ease and relish that Ra began to pity the remaining humans. Ra stopped her rampage by throwing a party and getting her drunk. Meanwhile, the goddess Isis made a poisonous snake out of Ra's drool that would turn on him and bite him. Old and weak as he was, Ra began to die. Isis promised to heal him, but only if he revealed his secret name to her. He reluctantly did, and in that instant he was healed, and Isis became the goddess of life and magic. By this time, Ra was very old, and he decided to leave the ruling of the earth to humanity. He took his place in the heavens, traveling through the sky by day and crossing the underworld in a boat through the 12 divisions of Duat by night. Though it is a dangerous journey, each morning, Ra is reborn by the goddess Nut. Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah, every day the world dies, and in the morning it is resurrected, the Egyptian temple way.
This is an example of how religions are connected. In terms of so what mythology is this? This is Egyptian.
Egyptian, yeah.
What would you wouldn't really call it a religion, would you? Because it was just Egyptian, right? Like, I don't know what they would have called it back then.
No, they wouldn't. It was more like.
This is our culture.
It was an entire belief system. It was not just religion.
It was in Africa.
I think it's
in Africa. So anyway, my point is that in the Judeo-Christian culture, there's that story of and Nick was talking about it. Who wrestled with the angel? Who wrestled?
Jacob.
And then did they name him Israel after?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. The power in the word, the power in the name. When you know someone's name, you have access to them. And so that's why, like, the angel didn't want to give up his name, and this God didn't want to give up his name. But when you know the name of God, you have some power over it, and that your word will then have power as well. You can speak things into existence.
Yeah, and it's like he was wounded also, just like the Fisher King wound that I was trying to point out a couple of weeks ago. But also, in the beginning of this description of Ra, I mean, that's what I think of when I think of the Logos. Essentially, his ability to call things into being just by speaking them and naming them, just like Adam is tasked with naming all the animals in the garden.
And we have the same ability. Then that's why that's tapping into it. Seriously.
That's the definition of abracadabra. I create as I speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at abracadabra and break it down, it's abra, cad, abra. So you have two things around a center syllable. And that's the orbital magic, just even of the word.
And then you actually have to do things, though. So that's the part about growing up, right? Because it's like I speak things and then I got to follow through. We say in religious science, treat and move your feet, because they call prayer treatment. So it's the feet part that I'm still working on, guys.
Well, and that's the thing about modern culture is, and betrayal and truth is, a lot of people will say things, but the irony is they mean quite another. They're not going to do anything. And in older cultures, you would only say something to announce your action. I mean, and that's been kind of left in the dust in a way. So that the words are separate from we think now we can separate our words from our actions. We can sit here, have a conversation. It's an action, but as I mentioned, ancient cultures, it was just an announcement.
If you're an actor or a poet, you like to talk, and then you can make an art of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's frivolous, you just need a container around it.
Well, and yeah, that's the arrows, putting it down, acting it out.
Part. Okay.
It is, but it also comes up for me in relation to things like negative self-talk, and how people don't realize the creative capacity of talking to yourself.
Or your children.
Or your children,
right. Because also it's like if you hop in a hot tub and you go, oh, it's too hot, you get out. Well, same thing with negative thinking. This is negative. Okay, get out. Stop that. Change the feel of the place.
So Jordan, you might know the answer to this. There's two extra arcana in the She-Wolf deck. She calls them the secret arcana. One is Saturn and one is Mercury. And Mercury's quite special. Or no, that's the minor arcana. They're quite special. Okay, but this is the sun. So
what about Mercury? And she has two extra cards, one Saturn and one Mercury.
Yeah, in this deck, which we're not getting to tonight.
Well, astrologically, just the scale issue is, to me, the obvious piece to bring up is that Saturn would be the most stable, stationary force, and Mercury is the quickest fastest, most agile moving force.
Well, let's talk about Jung and tarot, because a lot of people don't know about what you just said. At least I'm one of those. I still don't understand Saturn and Mercury and all that. With all due respect, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, that's not really very Jung. That's
it's just astrology.
Yeah,
it's just astrology.
We're not doing that tonight. Okay, so reading on here.
So what was the answer that you thought I might have?
Yeah, I just thought you might have some comment on that, because there also Melissa Townsend's deck, the big one, the black and white one, or the brown and white one, has 2 extra cards also, but one of the cards is white entirely, and one of the cards is black.
You know, if I was to speak to the Saturn and Mercury in a tarot format here, we've mentioned alchemy as well. It would seem that Saturn would be the material and Mercury would be the catalyst. So Saturn would be what is operated on, and Mercury would be what is operated with.
The energy. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, so E equals MC squared.
There you go.
Raises its head again. Einstein was right. Okay.
Except according to Tesla.
His wife also helped him develop a lot of his stuff and didn't get a lot of credit. But I'm just saying, Mrs. Einstein.
Quite right. Go watch the Genius movie.
He had to go play violin to stay happy.
Yep. Okay. So, Sun. This is the She-Wolf deck from Deviant Wolf. Artwork illumination. Here we meet Horus again, the sun god. Horus was the protector of ancient Egypt. He had to battle with his brother Set, the deceiver, and after much toil, won the throne as the king. Beneath his sigil stand women who bask in the warm rays of his light, signifying joy and rest. And light, at this stage in our tarot journey, many of us would say we've seen all there is to see. Much has been experienced indeed, and much has been tested. As we come away from the moon and her lessons, we find ourselves comforted by the glow of the sun again. As he rises, so do our spirits. When we receive this card, we are being asked to strengthen our self-confidence and broaden our generosity. It is a time to give and be of service. It is a time to relish in the simple pleasures of being alive. It is a time to be inspired to make art, music, dance, play, realize ideas, all in the light, all within the contentment of having passed heartily through trials. Shadow. We may be overshadowing our reach, unable to live up to the standards we have set for ourselves. We may be at risk of thinking too highly of ourselves, falling into excessive ego and being overconfident. Our service to others may actually be for selfish gain. Our task is to be honest with ourselves about this and make the proper shifts in intention. Mantra. The sun shines in my heart, awakening my generosity. Okay, very nice. Comments on this card before we go to the Starman?
Just becoming glaringly obvious that she is a very big fan of Aleister Crowley and Thelema as these cards progress.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the alchemy of that with the 7-pointed alchemist star in there.
Okay, just so you know, it's not obvious to everyone, and I'm one of those people, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice to know, Nick, but how do you derive that? Just from the alchemy?
No, actually nothing to do with alchemy. Aleister Crowley is most known for using the 7-pointed star upside down, Star of Babylon or Babylon. And also pretty much the central tenets of Thelema and his philosophy rotate around goddess worship. And he coined a ritual called the Gnostic Mass, in which There's always a woman that's usually derobed and pretty much worshipped by the entire temple, much on a throne and altar, just like this here. And just like there's a naked woman throughout all of this. And she's also referenced the Lima in previous cards.
When they say
And
worship,
also all of the Lima and Aleister Crowley's philosophy was an attempt to recapitulate Egyptian belief.
was this sex magic when you say they were worshipped?
No, I mean, although that's definitely a part of his kind of overall belief system, but no, not in this sense. I mean, they're just you can watch the rituals on YouTube if you so choose. I mean, it's nothing sexual. It's essentially just worshiping the female body.
Well, I actually asked that because I was reading a book once where there was a statue. It was like yoni worship, where it's a statue that has water flowing and the person's supposed to sip at it, which, obviously is like an imitation of oral sex on a woman. And I've heard of Aleister Crowley being all sorts of.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a component of his belief as well, but not in this particular case. I mean, it's just an instance of just instead of it being an elk priest up there, it's just a woman that assumes the role, and she just happens to be naked.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so there are words on the Starman Tarot's sun, and obviously the Starman Tarot's sun is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You can do anything.
Or two.
I can't read it.
You can do anything with. You can do anything with this not divisible. You can do anything, something, it is not divisible.
Yeah, it's not divided.
Anything.
You set the context for your life. An
intriguing principle that sits
like no.
The
An
barefoot
intuitive principle that sits like the something
back row.
Like the back row. I think they did this on purpose, you guys.
Background.
The background.
Resonance.
Okay,
yeah,
well, maybe if
life, you can do anything
with this not divisive or something.
It is not divisible. The second line, it is not divisible. It is life, energy. Wait, something destroyed. Wait, please. Wait, make it bigger.
Bring it back.
All right.
You can do anything, something. You can do something. It is not divisible. It is life, energy. Something destroyed.
Yeah.
Be destroyed.
Everywhere. Divisibility. See, I feel like they did that on purpose. Some of it makes sense, but I think they make some of it not make sense.
So the first one is you set the context for your life.
Yes. Yeah, see, that's what I mean.
Something principle that sit like the background.
Resonance
of your life.
And you can do anything when it is indivisible instead of when. I wonder if that's.
And it is something energy.
Life.
Yeah.
And then the rest of this phrase goes into the flames. See, they do it on purpose. It is life, energy, something we don't know. Something.
I think that the first sentence is very much of what I will like. The sun experience is you set the context for your life, because one of the things that I said about clarity through life, through living, through discard, everything seems so obvious, and even that idea of understanding other people and why they do what they do, everything becomes so obvious, and then the question that becomes more relevant is not why people are doing what they're doing, is what you are going to do, and if that reality of other people will influence your reality and what you make of it, you know. And
Right.
so there's kind of a responsibility of what you're doing.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's where we get into the enactment of the world we want. We take the godlike plunge in transpersonal psychology, and we enact the world we want.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me read this quickly.
That's a beautiful card.
It sure is.
The emotion is just incredible.
Yeah. Okay, I celebrate the golden opportunities that life brings. The sun in summer heralds warmth with its dazzling glow and vibrant source of energy, bringing renewed vitality and freedom, the sheer visceral celebration of being alive. Its intensity unfurls the petals of protection through winter to reveal our beauty, the exquisite process of growing into ourselves. We can begin to awaken from hibernation, the natural conservation of energy, and release our worries and fears in the brilliance of sunshine, allowing its heat to thaw the coldness deep within our bodies. The sun is depicted in this card as the thousand-hand Guan Yin, the East Asian bodhisattva associated with compassion, the goddess of mercy. A spiritual, advanced human being. She is ready to transcend duality, the cycles of life and death, but she chooses to remain in the material world to enable others to also reach enlightenment. She is the most beloved goddess of the Chinese and the bestower of good fortune and success. Her light illuminates the atmosphere. The arms of her rays touch everything, granting them life. The sun symbolism, predominantly masculine in form, has occupied a dominant position in many cultures, mythologies, and religions, with its first possible artistic rendition being traced to an anonymous engraving of a sunray face at least 10,000 years old in the cave of East Timor, Indonesia. Further east in Japan, Nihon, the source of the sun depicted as the red disk on a white background, is the national emblem, venerated for its brilliance, power, and certainty. Wherever you are in the world, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, its daily rhythms mapping our path of the human soul. Birth at dawn, the power of maturity at midday and sunset, and the completion of the journey, the splendor of the setting sun. Brilliant oranges, pinks, and reds dance, refract, and melt, reflecting the incredible beauty and mystery of life. We named our daughter Solaria, welcoming the burst of energy, warmth, and light she would shine into our lives. Therefore, the sun bears bountiful gifts, the fruit of our trials and labor, rewarding us for our determination and struggle to the pursuit of truth. It reminds us how good it is to be alive, filled with boundless energy and enthusiasm, laughter bubbling, squeals of delight, children playing, naturally exploring, exquisitely open and expectant, capable of anything. This energy is infectious, and people warm to you immediately and are excited by what you have to offer. Celebrate the light. Reversed, the bubble is about to burst. Deliberate whether it's a self-sabotage pattern that is taking the wind out of your sails. Your positive, confident attitude will shine through, so don't take things too seriously, and remember the power of laughter to lighten things up. All right. I like that. And it happens that Guan Yin, I happen to have a picture of Ofuna Canon here. Some of you may have seen it, but that's Guan Yin 2. And so it's on my desktop if I can get to it. Let's see if I can find it.
Did you intentionally not include Stephen Heller's book, or?
No, I have it here. I just haven't done it yet.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'd like to hear what he has to say if we have time.
All right, we can make time somehow.
Guan Yin.
I want to show Guan Yin first, because this is Guan Yin in Ofuna, Japan, and she was my goddess when I was in high school, and so very important to me personally. And I'll tell you the story of her in a minute. Okay, so here's Guan Yin. But in Japanese, it's Kanon. And so this is Ofuna Kanon. And I could see this statue every day coming home from school. It's lighted, and it was completed about 1 month before I moved to Japan at age 15. And through all the trials and tribulations of living in a country that had been at war with my country only 17 years before, and having to travel back and forth on trains among all Japanese and so on, it was a stressful time for me as a teenager. But I always saw this statue lighted normally at night when I was coming home from school. And it's actually right next to the train station that we went through. And it comforted me. And what this statue was built for, though, is that Guan Yin went to the underworld and redeemed the souls of Japan's war dead. That's what this statue is actually about, is redeeming the souls of the war dead after World War II. And so it's very poignant. And
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Skip.
so,
You have a strong connection with the warriors of the world.
okay, now we wanted, let's see, let's see. Okay, Stephen Heller. All right, we'll make this the last thing we do here because it's getting long.
No, we're at 4 hours and 7. 3 recorded, 3:07.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a record.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to make breakfast. It's like
Okay, let me see if I can share that. Oops, that's not it, right?
Oh, that is it.
that was it.
Wait a minute. That should be it. Okay. So Stephen Heller's book. I happen to have it here. I have a bookmark on the right page. Okay. I don't know if I should expand this. Let me expand it a little bit. So again, we've been talking about Kabbalah, and the sun is this path. And what are these paths, Nick? 8 and 9 here.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is it? What are these two nodules?
8 is Hod and 9 is Yesod.
And what do they represent?
Well, 8 is the sphere of Mercury, and it has to do with intellect. And 9 is the sphere of Yesod. But, if you were to imagine yourself backed into this, if you were to superimpose the Vitruvian Man on top of this would be right around the genital region 9. Mm-hmm. So it has to do with the ego.
Okay.
So is 9 associated with Saturn?
No, it's
No. Okay. So there's not a Mercury-Saturn connection. Like, okay.
No.
Okay, so the Sun, the 19th arcanum. A naked child rides a white horse and holds a banner aloft. In other decks, two naked children dance in a circle under the sun. The many-sided sun smiles down from the sky. Happiness and joy and victory pervade the entire picture. In the background is a walled garden with golden sunflowers growing in profusion. The conjoining of vital energy with the principle of intellect makes for innocent happiness like that of happy childhood. Although still a babe in the woods of the tree of life, the ascending soul is powerful in its mastery of the horse of emotion and body. The garden of its mind bears fine plants in the image of the vitalized principle of intellect.
That speaks a lot to Curtis's question about reclaiming lost spiritual instinct.
Yeah.
From earlier.
Yeah.
Logos and eros. It's what you were talking about, Skip. I think that's a nice, a nice bridge between what I felt, what I was intuiting that you were saying and Nick was saying. We need the life energy to charge the intellect. I like the way they put it here.
We need the life energy to charge the matter, right? It's E equals MC squared.
To charge the matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Checked out.
So we're all matter, but if the spirit leaves us, and that's the life energy, then we're just a carcass.
If I cut off my arm, it can't do anything because it's not attached to my consciousness.
Yep, that's true. Okay.
If you cut off your arm, you can't cut off your other arm.
Well, what I'm saying, that's funny. But what I'm saying is but it's true because often we think, oh, hey, look, I am picking up this bowl, right? And that my arm is picking up this bowl, but there are all these subconscious processes. So it looked automatic, but it's actually my consciousness that's affecting matter. We think matter affects us. Like does that make sense? Like if this were to crumble and something hits me on the head, we think the matter is affecting me, but actually somehow consciousness is affecting it. Even if it's an act of God, you could say it's God's consciousness. I solved it, you guys. I fixed it.
Okay, keynote. Joining the principle of vital energy with that of the intellect, the mind becomes filled with great triumphant force. Motto: a man's wisdom maketh his face to shine. Ecclesiastes 8:1. Meditation. On the white horse of pure consciousness, I ride into the sun. I am a child of the eternal. I am filled with splendor, light, and power. Nothing can harm me save my own ignorance. Wisdom will make my face shine. I am victorious insight. I shall conquer and prevail. I am a ray of the blazing sun of all universes. I now take my first step toward complete freedom. I shall be free, for I shall dwell in the eternal. Okay. And
so from this day forth, we're going to be self-actualized, right, Skip?
That's
no more
the theory. Work? Yeah, that's the theory. And let's see. I'm just going to, as part of my homily here, I'm going to just read this one paragraph from the Radiant Sutra's preface, because it really is on the E equals MC squared topic. Okay, so I'm reading from the Radiant Sutras by Lauren Roach, and he says in his prelude, the Bhairava Tantra is set as a conversation between the goddess, who is the creative power of the universe, and the god, who is the consciousness that permeates everywhere. For short, they call each other Devi and Bhareva, or Shakti and Shiva. They are lovers and inseparable partners, and one of their favorite places of dwelling is in the human heart. So it's creative power and consciousness that permeates everywhere. Okay, anything else that we need to do before we wrap here?
I think just Happy New Year to everyone later this week.
Right.
And see you at Participation Mystique on Friday.
And yes, join us on the Participation Mystique on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, and 9 p.m. for Raquel in Brazil. And please do submit your doodles. By now you should have a pretty good idea what we're looking for in doodles. And Samantha's already, and so is Jordan, and so have I, all done our doodles. So we'll look forward to seeing one from Raquel and from Nick.
Yeah, I have a question. Would anybody hold it against me if it wasn't exactly a doodle? Because the problem that I have with the idea of doodling, but my personal problem with doodling is I find it very hard to get out of my own way and just doodle. Like the last time that we did the thing where we submitted drawings, I guess it was for the presidential election. I just did a bunch of images from my dreams that I typically will draw out when I.
That was perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, that was powerful, Nick.
Yeah,
you may not think it.
Your images were really powerful, as I recall.
I liked them, and I just wanted to. I don't know. I just didn't want everybody to think like, "Oh, this guy spent 15 minutes on it when it was supposed to be a doodle or something." But
no.
That's the only way that I can.
Last time we had a doodle that was a very professional portrait. In fact, I'll just show it to you because it was such an amazing portrait.
And Nick, sometimes no one cares about the blood, sweat, and the tears. If the poem is amazing and you dumped it out in 10 seconds, it's Pulitzer. It doesn't matter how long. But I think there's an old quote that might apply here too. No one can be a prophet in their own hometown because everyone went to high school with you. I mean, you're just that guy.
I'm pretty sure that's from the Gospel of Thomas, right?
Well, and yeah, I pretty much. And the thing is, we often do that to ourselves because we're even more our own hometown. So I want you to know, especially with those dreams, and I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people commented that your dream talk visually, those were beyond wonderful. I mean, they were intense and they were powerful.
And you have to deliver at that level each time, Nick.
Oh no, it has to be better.
You can't come back to
okay, I can't find it, Nick, so I'm sorry. Maybe I can. Wait
I bet you if Jesus went to high school and like went on and like rose again, they'd be like, Jesus thinks he's all that. Like,
well, actually, how about this for
Samantha?
How about this for explaining it? Jesus was an only child.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
No, I know, but everyone thinks he is.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just show you.
Did he get grounded for turning over the money changers?
Okay,
bring it in.
That's a fairly non-doodleish doodle, but that was submitted the last time.
Yeah, I mean, this even puts my developed image to shame. I would actually be like, I'm sorry, we can't accept this.
My ego.
Well, but even if you look at the painting, yeah.
My ego went, she's just showing off or whatever. And then it went, oh, wait, I'm happy for them. Like literally in that order. It was like, and I was like, okay, Well,
and actually that painting was kind of ballsy because it starts hyper clean and finished right up in the foreground.
Yeah.
And it starts to disintegrate as it goes into the past in the background.
I want to see it again, please.
Oh, you want to see it again?
Yeah.
Well, how about if I show you this one? This is more like a doodle. And it's supposed to represent the mark of the self. So I'll show you this, and then I'll go get the other one here.
Cool.
Because because I already took it off my desktop. I thought we were done with it. Okay.
Well, you know, actually,
here
Nick,
you go.
Your point about the dream stuff and not doodling, it brings up actually a really good point with the sun. On my, I guess, 46-second sun video, the last line is the sun card. It's you as only you can be. And so however you doodle is however you doodle.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm just, okay, so this is what you wanted to see again? Who was it, Samantha?
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to see it again? Are you looking?
Yes, I am.
Okay, this is called COVID Moves.
That's cool.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Weird moves to be making.
Yeah.
Wow.
Checkmate in 3.
Yeah,
I
probably.
like it.
So,
Again, it's an example of something I don't even have to I don't have to understand to appreciate it, but then when it has the clever title, it's like, oh, there's some intellectual payoff as well. I really like that. That person's work, they could be professional. Are they professional?
Mm-hmm.
yes, she is a professional, and Colleen tells the story that she's been working together with Susan Moore for many years, and one time Susan walked in with this huge painting, and it was a portrait of Colleen that she had done. And so it was quite amazing.
Is that her portrait? Is that a self-portrait of the artist? The woman in the painting, is that?
Yes, it was, yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
I knew it. I'm intuitive.
You prophesied it.
Yeah, so there's a note from just in case to Raquel. You're attracting men here, Raquel.
There are worse things to attract.
Does your channel use your name? I'll pop in and say hello. By the way, the main protagonist in my new novel, Spiritual Mystery, is a Portuguese woman. And, okay.
That's your cage, mister. She's ours. I'm teasing.
Wrong country.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. He could just be, whatever.
Okay, so I'll give you 15 more seconds, Justin, to capture those places to find Raquel. Okay, folks, that's a long night. And my day started at 6 this morning when we had to go to senior hours to food shop, which is becoming extremely painful for me.
Well, and including pregame, I mean, this is where 4 hours and 22 minutes.
That's plenty. Okay.
Yeah, that's like a season in a day.
Before we sign off, wait, Skip. And I just want to ask, what is everyone going to be doing right now? Because I don't know, I just want to know. Like, what are you going to go do?
I'm going to eat and I'm going to sleep because it's 1:20 a.m. here in Brazil.
Yeah, I'm going to eat because my dog got up from her nap right before the show and I haven't eaten dinner.
Cool. Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to eat and sleep. Nick, what were you going to do?
I'm going to go have a glass of eggnog and then brush my teeth and then lay down.
Nice. Okay. Put some grandma in it.
Good idea. I think I'll do that too. I happen to have some eggnog in the fridge.
Put some Grand Marnier in there.
I'm going to eat this cashew and clarified honey and banana sandwich on toasted sprouted bread. Skip, what are you going to do?
I'm going to have some eggnog and maybe a couple of cookies. Maybe a couple of cookies.
Nice.
I'm sending you guys good vibes.
Yeah, peace.
Send eggnog.
Great. Bye, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Mañana, Samantha. Bye-bye.
Bye.